fantastic. This is GT Racing right now.
He's got traction, he's going around the outside of both of them. Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up to
Oh my God! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go. Oh no!
That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my God!
God, what?
This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
It's that time once again. You know what time it is. The majors, the international division, one of the most varied racing leagues in all of sim racing. And this is the next round of the championship. Le Mans 2.4 hours. Yes, they're only going for 1/10 of the time, but no, the action is not going to be any less important. I'm Reese Gardner here for SimSpeed TV on the iRacing Esports Network, and Jay Kennedy is alongside me for this one. Jay, Le Mans, I'm looking forward to it.
Better turn my microphone on before I try and talk. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's been a little while since I've been here for the majors. I've missed the last 2 rounds, unfortunately, but looking forward to getting back out there. And I know Indy was a fantastic race. Le Mans last year, we had a great time. We did the 24-hour last year, getting it back to a 2.4. This is going to be extremely fun.
Yeah, certainly. So 144 minutes, or 2 hours and 24 minutes. That's the length that we're dealing with. And we have got a wide variety of cars here today. What you'd usually see at Le Mans: LMP1, LMP2, and GT. And all of those fields incredibly competitive.
Yeah, really, really tight field. The time's been close all week. And there's going to be a little bit of a delay to the start of the race with some server changes and things like that. But that will mean that we're going to have a very, very competitive full field out on track tonight.
Yeah, certainly. Many cars getting ready to take the start of this one. Now, championship standings, we've seen quite a bit of shuffling up the top recently. Drivers that have tried to make their way in this series and have not reflected their performances from last year.
Yeah, 100%. Josh Nowak, reigning champions, hardly been able to race this season, so he's looking like he'll have to give up the number 1, and it's been a really, really competitive start of the season. And obviously 3 road races, 3 oval races has meant that we're seeing a fairly close championship leaderboard at the front of the field. Jason Martin on top, but Cameron Dance right there with him. Those two are going to go right down all the way to the final race in a few months' time.
Yeah, absolutely. And the likes of John King and Robert Northway, they're involved in a battle as well for third. And if something happens to Martin or Dance in the last few rounds of the series, then King and Northway will be right there to pick up the pieces and take it home.
Yeah, 100%. They're very, very good drivers. We saw last season how good they were. They got there right till the end. Were very, very close to winning the championship as well. So they were really, really tight. And yeah, it's going to be a really, really interesting finale to the season. As we said, this is the halfway point right now. So as we get to the end, it's going to be really, really fun to see how it all plays out.
Indeed, that's the top 8 in the pro standings. Meanwhile, the sportsman standings, Dave Douglas is leading those with a good margin of 148 points over Eric Thorpe. Looking good for him up there. Matt Hunter and Daryl Hockey, though. Look at how close those guys are. Brad Matheson and Riley Curtis. It's very competitive for the top 5 in the sportsman standings.
Yeah, 100%. These guys are the guys that you see fighting it out right in the lower parts of the field. But these guys fight as hard as everyone else, and these guys are the guys that are here every week and try as hard as they can, put in the most laps in practice out of everyone in the field. These guys do a really, really good job, and great to see how close this championship is, and well done to the majors for putting on a championship just for these drivers as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always something to race for, like the Legends Championship, which John King, let's be honest, that's complete and utter crushing domination that we're seeing in the Legends standings. Gavin Barber, Scott Kukas, Craig Hopkins, and N.A. McCall, unfortunately, not able to stand up to John King.
Well, we saw last season how dominant John was throughout this Legends Championship. He was right there to win the overall, and being in the Legends as well is a really, really good feat. So he's doing a really good job. And Gavin Barber a little bit closer this season than what he had competition-wise last season. But John King sitting 3rd in the overall championship standings, or 4th in the overall. it's going to be hard to beat him in the Legends Championship when he's that high up in the overall as well.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, the Legends standings. The Legends Championship is for drivers over 50 years old. So something for older sim racers to race for as well. Finally, the teams standings. We're looking at Kinetic Swift Racing with the Absolute. Well, they've pretty much got this wrapped up, haven't they? Illusion and Sim Speed and the rest of them. They have unfortunately not had as big and coordinated of an effort as Kinetic Swift Racing. Those guys have really come with their A game to the series.
100%. They're looking to dominate the series once again. They dominated last year, and heaps of drivers right up the front the whole way through the season. But great to see other teams also starting to work their way forward. Avatar Auto Racing doing a good job moving forward. CMR team, obviously, we've seen the demise of CMR team, so we won't see those guys out on track as a team for the rest of this season. But there's still going to be a real tight fight, especially that second, third, fourth range. There's not much separating second, third, and fourth, only 180 points. So we're going to see that little section come right down to the last race as well, which will be really, really fun to watch.
It certainly will, but we do have a 2.4-hour race coming up. Qualifying has already been run and done. Now we're just waiting for that green flag to drop. It's time for us to take a quick break here on the iRacing Esports Network, but we will be back with more.
Growing up as a kid in Oklahoma, where I'm from, the Chili Bowl is the biggest race that we have. The Chili Bowl has kind of been my favorite race of the year. Growing up a dirt racer in Oklahoma, that's kind of the holy grail.
inside wall.
Gonna pass nearly 3 cars down that front straightaway, and he's gonna get them all done with. What amazing!
Race lead to the inside goes Logan Cloudman is gonna touch in. Pit crash sideways. What a save!
Look to the outside and Cronkite goes off. De Jong into second place.
Going for the switchback. Oh, pinpoint driving.
It's howling down to the inside.
I'm trying this contact though.
Slide left to the racetrack. Chris Renner drives it back down underneath, and he takes that second spot right back. Joker goes to Garrett Lowe.
Garrett Lowe should take victory with all that contact.
He's going to try and make the move around the outside the parabolica. That's not going to work, but he's going to try and get the cut back here. Get the run out the parabolica. That's beautifully done there. Michael Schumacher, there's a little bit of door banging as well. Fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction. He's got rid of the outside. Both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my God.
Big crash. Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my God!
God, what? This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
On the iRacing Esports Network, this is the 2.4 Hours of Le Mans, round 7 of the International Division of the Majors Series. Reese Gardner with you once again on SimSpeed TV, and Jay Kennedy alongside me. Jay, we are now in the race session, currently in a 10-minute warm-up at the moment, but the drivers are out there getting themselves calibrated for 144 minutes of racing.
Yeah, and the time for the race is going to be really interesting as well. 144 minutes is a real unusual length for these sort of cars. Most of the time we see stints around the hour mark for the GTEs and the HPDs. The LMP ones will probably need 2 stops easy. The GTEs though will be 1.5 stops. So what do you do tyre-wise? It's going to be a really interesting dynamic as to what you do, how you plan your tyre stops and your pit strategies and things like that. The HPDs as well can do this race on 2 stops, if you're good at fuel saving. So it's going to be really interesting to understand who's doing what, and the strategy game is going to make this race really interesting come the end.
Absolutely is, because according to the real-life rules, you change tyres and fuel at different times. So there is that level of what am I going to do if you're a GTE driver? Do you take that half tank of fuel and not take tyres, or do you give away that extra 15 seconds and hope you make it up with fresh rubber? I think if GT guys want to do that tyre stop, they would probably make their short stop first, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I think so. I think if you also find yourself stuck behind someone you're struggling to get past, or you find yourself in a huge battle pack that you don't want to be in, you want to do something different to everyone else, so you probably think double stint tyres and short fuel in your first stop, and then do a bigger stop and tyres in your second one. Might get you a bit of track position for later on in the race. But it's so such an interesting dynamic, these races, with the multi-class aspect, the such different pace between the cars, that we're going to see all sorts of different mix-ups throughout the field. It's going to be really, really interesting to watch. I'm looking forward to seeing how it all plays out.
Yes, indeed, and we can't go through this without mentioning the track either. Le Mans, it's an incredible circuit, one of the most historic in the world. It's been holding races since 1920, and the majority of the track is the same public roads that were used back then, and an awful lot of very long straights for those LMP1s to stretch their legs and get past traffic. But of course, they do have those twisty bits, the fast sweeping Porsche curves and the Dunlop S's at the beginning of the lap. That's going to be something to look out for when you're lapping in traffic.
Yeah, exactly too. As well, we see the two different LMP1s. They're a little bit closer than what they were, with the balance of performance slightly adjusted in the last week or so. So we're seeing the Audis be a little bit more competitive from what we've seen previously in these races. So it's going to be a real Porsche versus Audi battle, and in the GTEs as well, the balance of performance has tightened up a little bit as well. So it's really down to all, or anything could happen, because we're not really just going to see Porsche dominate like we've seen previously, or Audi dominate, which we have seen sometimes as well. We're going to see a really interesting race between Audi and Porsche, as well as BMW, Ferrari, Ford, and also, who have I missed there? Porsche in the GTE. I was like, I've just said Porsche, but no, I hadn't. And of course, the HPDs as well always put on a good show. They're such good fun cars to drive, the HPDs, and though you're a big fan of those races, and we're going to see some great racing out there tonight.
Absolutely. I love the HPD. It was my main car on iRacing for a long time, so it's going to be nice to see them in action again. Coming into the Dunlop curve, you see an example of multi-class racing. That's John King in the HPD passing a BMW. Well, now we are into the race session, and the grid will be as follows. Leading up the field, we got Blake Neck on pole position in the LMP1s, Gabriel Roos alongside him, Eric Thorpe and Dennis Cho as well, Dean Moll running at the top 5, Antoine Blancas and Robert Northway, along with Josh Pervine, Borja Bueno, Dave Douglas rounding out the top 10, and your LMP1 field rounded out by Rory Boyd, Riley Curtis, Paul Gehringer, Stephen Grimmer, Mitchell Bales, and Jeff McPherson. 16 LMP1 cars in this.
Then to our HPD field, which is Chris Purnell and Victor Folby on the front row, with Dane Burns, Michael Skurlock, then Marco Dutnak, Martin Hallinan, John King, and Hayden Benefield. That's the first 4 rows in this class. We've got 19 in total in this class. Taff Baldwin, Raymond Regoletto, Alex Court, Roy Clark, Shane Bowen, Brett Gerards, Brad Finley, and then James Robbie. We go over the page again. Daniel Stevens, Jonathan Ben, and Grant Patalo.
And Cameron Dance for TTL Esports as your pole sitter in the GTE class in his Porsche. Philip Morton lining up alongside him in the FT1 Ferrari. Jimmy Ball and James Foster lining up behind him as the cars start pulling away behind the safety car. Of course, these classes are leaving a gap between themselves so as not to trip over each other on the start. So the LMP1s will take the start first, followed by the LMP2s, and then the GTE. And that's the rest of your GTE field. Jason Martin, the closest rival to Cameron Dance for the overall championship, is way down the GTE field. He's all the way down on row 24.
Yeah, starting 13th in class. So he'll be looking to make some moves early, but we know that he is a really good racer. He might not have the qualifying pace on the road side, but the race pace is always really good. He definitely underestimates himself and his ability on the road side of things, but we saw last year how good he was, and already this season we've seen huge improvements and huge inroads into his performances in the road side of things. But we're getting ready to go as the planes fly over and get us ready to get this race underway.
Absolutely, it's a wonderful sight. Those 3 fighter jets tracing the French flag colours across the sky as the cars take the start. They're just exiting the Porsche curves in the LMP1 field. It's a full 56-car field here at Le Mans for this 2.4-hour race, and they will be going into the night. There we go. You can see the trails left by the fighter jets. I love that iRacing's put that in. That's fantastic.
It's such a huge element of Le Mans, and such an iconic scene at the start of a race here to see those planes fly over there. You can see them at the top of the screen. As we get ready to get the green flag, Le Mans is about to light up.
And it's going to be up to Blake Neck as to when he goes. Of course, they're going to be going too wide through the chicanes. The green flag is out, and Neck has gotten a fantastic start, just flat out from the word go, and he's got a good gap over Gabriel Roos. Meanwhile, the rest of the LMP1 field starting to side their way through. Dean Moles making a move on Eric Thorpe as the LMP2 field takes the start, leading the way for those guys. Victor Folby.
Yeah,
Sorry,
very
Chris
clean.
Purnell. My apologies.
Very clean start in the HPD field, and Cameron Dance, Philip Morton got a great jump from everyone else. It's fairly settled. We've got one LMP1 car that started at the back. We've got a car off the circuit there too. Ooh. That is Brett Gerard's in the middle finger racing car as he gets back on the circuit. So not a good start from him, but the front of the field, have a look at the gap that Blake Neck's already pulled. He's already got 3 seconds.
My goodness. So that is exactly the kind of gap that you
need. Oh,
there's
a car upside down.
Oh my goodness, that is a big crash. My goodness, the track's blocked and the LMP2s are just starting to come through.
It's Mitchell Bales.
Mitchell Bales.
Yeah, and Riley Curtis as well, facing the wrong direction. Well, see if we can get a replay and see what's happened there, but that was a huge impact. We saw Riley Curtis almost flipping, and obviously saw the end part there for Mitchell Bales as well. Oh, I think we're going to see
Mitchell Bales. It actually looks to me like he got a run on the driver in front of him, Dave Douglas, but went into the wall, and that unsettled his car. Bounced off it a couple of times. Have a look here, coming down the end, and on those bumps. See, that's what happens. That's why you don't go on the road margins at Le Mans. So many bumps. Unfortunately, that's taken out a good portion of the LMP1 field right at the start.
Yeah, it's a disappointing start for those guys, but have a look at Robert Northway starting to put pressure straight away on Dean Mole at the front of the field, and you can also see there the 393 car, Josh Pruin as well, trying to get involved. So a really close battle for the podium spots in the LMP1 field at the front of GTE, though. The guys at the front of GTE are lapping, or pace at the moment is very, very close to the back runners in the HPD class. This is going to be really tough for these guys.
Yeah, it is. Of course, we've got a heavily damaged Brett Gerards just in front of these guys as Morton standing in Dance's draft on the run up to Mulsanne corner. Of course, at this point in the race, you don't want to be making any crazy moves. Morton has an opportunity to save fuel here behind Dance as one of the stricken LMP1s makes his way through. But you see Gerards up there in front of them. He obviously had a bad start, spun in turn 1.
Well, this looks racy.
Oh, yeah, that's getting a little bit awkward coming up to Indianapolis.
It's nearly 4 wide coming up up into Indianapolis. Jeez, I can't even talk today, Reese. It's been said before we come live. It's been a little while since I've been here for the majors.
We got a move for the lead in GTE, Jay. Philip Morton's just tried to get by Cameron Dance at Indianapolis, but Dance is going to get him right back at Arnage, or is he? Much slower than it looks, that corner. He's managed to keep it.
That's a corner that you can so easily overrun because it feels like you can go so much deeper, but you've got to pull it up so much. It's just over a 90-degree corner, so it really does catch drivers out. And then that wall on the outside as well. But have a look at the run here Jimmy Ball's got. Getting back up on these guys. That little bit of fighting, they'd pulled a gap, but Jimmy Ball's right there again.
Absolutely. This is the top 6 in GTE. You zoom out enough, you can pretty much get them all in the same shot. They got a nice train going through the Porsche curves. There they are. My goodness. And the aero push that these guys will be suffering behind Cameron Dance, not optimal. Of course, Dance didn't get as good of an exit that time out of the Porsche curves, so we'll see if Morton can do anything about this. Can't really pass at the forward chicanes, though.
No, you're right, and we're seeing a lot of drivers into the pits from that first lap carnage, so we go back to this battle here. Oh, look at
Morton in the gravel.
Who needs track limits? You just push as hard as you can when the top 6. There's a real breakaway for these guys as well. So as the gap back to 7th is around about 3 seconds already in the first lap. But Morton and Dance, these guys are going to go at it. These two are very, very closely matched in these cars. We've seen in OEC how much these guys battle. This is going to be a really, really close fight. The front of the field in HPD spread out to around about a 3-second lead. And as we said, Blake Neck is now to a 4-second advantage at the front of LMP1. But in the middle of the LMP1 field, there's some really tight battling. As we're going to see a pass here, are we? No.
Oh, not quite, not quite. But you can see as Dennis Cho and Antoine Blancas make their way through the second of those Mulsanne chicanes. Oh, we've got an HPD spun at Mulsanne 1. That's Taft Baldwin.
Oh, watch out.
And that's going to be very awkward. Don't reverse. Oh, there we go. He's managed to get it done.
Tough spot to get the car straightened back up again, because it's right on the apex when you're trying to reverse to get it back in line. And has he done this one all on his own? You can see John King just ahead. He's tucked in under the rear wing. Oh, he outbroke himself and then...
Oh. Yeah, it's an easy thing to do. Those straights are so long. It's especially when you're further on in a race, easy to get fatigued and distracted down those long straights. You forget there's a corner coming up. Oh, he is too. So Ferrari leading the GTE field. That probably happened at Mulsanne 1.
I would guess so. So we did miss that while we were looking at the replay. Dance now is holding on from Jimmy Ball, who looks really strong. And then that fourth car back, James Foster, in that Porsche looks really good. We have dropped a car from this battle as well.
We have too. Oh, is that Morton?
Morton's
He's got a
slow.
slow down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we cut the course, man. That's what happened.
Yep. Trying to
I mean,
just
you
get
can push the track limits pretty far at Le Mans, but once you do push them far enough, they bite you hard. Wow, he's got a lot of work to do.
Yep, it's going to be tough for him to get that back. He's going to have to hope for a few issues and mistakes from these other guys ahead to close that gap up, or maybe find someone to work with him. But now it's a battle of 3 at the front of this field now. So, see if any changes there as Dance looks to come... Well, hold on, sorry, I should say, from Jimmy Ball.
Yeah, using that defensive line.
But,
meanwhile,
Dude, Knack trying to come through?
Oh, yes. Of course, he's facing a few challenges, making his way up through there. We do have a battle in LMP1 as well, Jay. Northway, Roos, and Bueno, with Josh Perween as well. Battle for the top 4 cars.
Yeah, this is a really tough fight too. These are all guys that we've seen a fair bit throughout this series and other series as well. So, guys that we know are very, very consistent drivers. So this will be a really good fight to watch over the next few minutes. Of course, very, very early into this race, only 8 minutes in, but you can tell that this race is going to have a very, very high intensity. There's a lot on the play on the line here. A lot of drivers pushing a lot harder than we would expect, especially at this early stage.
Yes, indeed. I mean, the sun is still out. The track is still lit up. You kind of want to make these moves while you can. Coming up to Mulsanne 1, Josh Perween earlier on the brakes, and Northway actually overshot slightly. So that's given Perween a little bit of a gap.
And Gabriel Roos didn't quite take as much of an advantage as he would have liked, so we'll see if he can get the run down the straight. But not closing up the gap as much as I would have thought.
Yes, well, it all depends on how you're using your boost around the lap. Remember, LMP1s, they're hybrids, and they have a rechargeable battery that they can use for some extra power. But you're only allowed to use up to 8 megajoules per lap if you're in the Porsche, and 6 megajoules if you're in the Audi, per the real-life rules of the time. And Ball and Dance battling very hard into the S's.
Yeah, and the other thing with that too is they also regenerate their powers in different ways as well. So making sure you harvest your energy, regenerate it at the right time, use it at the right time is a very, very strategic thing. And a lot of drivers get caught out with that when they're very, very new to those cars. They think, oh, we'll just go all out boost and use it all, and then all of a sudden they get absolutely swamped. So understanding how and when to use your boost is so crucial. We'll go back to that battle because it is on in the as they come up through Indianapolis.
Yeah, actually, Perween's lost the position there. And,
he's going to get it back though.
Oh, interesting. How did he manage to get that kind of run? And when you lock the brakes up in these LMP1 cars, as Perween just did, you can't recover them. They stay locked. You're basically a passenger. Northway getting passed by Roos on the run up to the Porsche curves, and not much that could be done about that. I think Roos was just using a little bit of extra boost, getting Northway out of his hair, and Northway is making that job a little bit easier for him. He just ran wide. Meanwhile, this is the battle in LMP2 for second place. Three-way between Dwayne Burns and Victor Folby. Almost a move into Indianapolis. We could probably see.
It's going to be tight. Goes through. Good move.
Yep, good move. And when you're on the inside coming into that section, sometimes it is better to just yield. Going side by side through there is a disaster more often than not.
So the field is spread in GTE though. That battle pack that we were watching has spread out. Morton's got back onto the tail of James Foster, but have a look at the gap. You can see Dance up ahead. He's around about 4 seconds up. So Morton's still got a bit of work to do to close up on Dance. Dance is almost at the point where he has broken the draft from Jimmy Ball. It's now out to 0.7 of a second. I think a little bit of traffic helped there.
Yeah, must have. Because you got to remember this multi-class racing dynamic. You aren't just racing the cars in your class. You also got to make sure that you can pass and can be passed without losing too much time. Blake Neck up the front. That is a huge, huge gap. Mitchell Bales is right behind him in 52nd position. Second place in LMP1, Eric Thorpe just behind him. That is the gap.
And you can see just up ahead is that little dot. That's Blake Neck, 6.5 seconds up the road. So a huge gap already in this field as Cameron Dance just gets passed by the tail end of the LMP2 or the HPD field. And what that has meant is Jimmy Ball has been able to close that gap back down again.
Yeah, he has. Up very close to Dance through the Porsche curves, and you see Dance struggling just slightly to maintain that front grip. Meanwhile, Cho and Bueno going right at it in these two Porsches out of Mulsanne too.
They've just changed position as well. Cho up the inside, got the move done, so good move from him. Going to go back to the GTE battle because there is another change of position. Morton through on Foster, so Morton's back into third. Oh, bouncing it off the curbs though. Want to be careful not to do that too much. It's already cost him once bouncing off the curbs. There's another change of position. Kerwin back through to try and get his position. Oh, jeez, that was close.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of margin where you can run off the road slightly here, but you don't want to push it too far. These guys coming down this stretch towards Indianapolis. This is public road most of the year, one of the original sections of the Circuit de la Sarthe in Le Mans. Oh, side by side through Indianapolis. What was I saying about that before? Northway and Roos sorting out their differences still.
And Northway just had the right rear in the dirt and was so close to looping it around. He did a great job to recover that. I thought it could have ended in tears, but of course four-wheel drive, they have a little bit of go. You can get them out in the dirt a little bit, but they don't like it too much, especially the under tray of these cars. They can get damaged quite easily.
Yeah, the LMP1s are downforce producing machines. They're basically closed wheel Formula 1 cars, essentially. Dance and Ball. Meanwhile, we ride on board with Ball, and he's still pressuring Dance through those Mulsanne chicanes. These cars don't have the ability to drive the front wheels. Just got to go for the rears on the GTs.
Yeah, a fair bit of horsepower in these machines. They don't have the top speed that we see in other tin top cars, but the power is incredible, and this is going to be a move here. Jimmy Ball will get through. Will Dance be able to come back though? It looks like he might try and do something here because he got on the brakes really early to try and maintain momentum. We could see a move coming up again soon.
Yeah, look at that exit. That's very good from Dance. And he's right back in the draft of Jimmy Ball. He's going to pass him right back at Mulsanne. Or is he? He's actually lifting off. So maybe waiting for another opportunity.
Or using this opportunity to save a little bit of fuel. Didn't think he was going to be able to get through. Saw maybe that LMP1 behind, or LMP2 behind, I should say, and thought maybe this is the best opportunity just to save a bit of fuel. I'm not going to get through. Strategy games like that at this stage of the race are very, very important. It's surprising how important it is at this stage to think about your fuel and think about your end game already. It's a very, very long race in most aspects. So thinking about the whole game and the whole race is such an important part of these races, as Dance still not quite able to get through, but this is going to be an intense battle for the next little bit.
Yeah, he was good on the brakes coming into Indianapolis. So Dance obviously comfortable with his overtaking ability, but anything you can save at Le Mans, make sure you can. Jimmy Ball almost making contact with the wall on the exit of Arnage. You don't want too much of that. So, using all the road and then some on the exit up to the Porsche curves.
I was about to say the exact same thing. He's using a lot more road than we've seen from a lot of other drivers, and through goes Dance into the Porsche curves. So Dance back into the lead in GT. What's that? The fourth pass for the lead we've already seen in the first 16 minutes of racing.
Yeah, something like that, and I think it's going to go on for quite some time, because you can see Dance, he's doesn't have quite as much poise as Jimmy Ball does through the Porsche curves, so that's going to be a challenge area for him. We've got to remember the difference in engines as well. This Ferrari uses a twin-turbo V8, while the Porsche uses a naturally aspirated flat 6. So they do make their power in different areas of the circuit. But far and away, it's a very competitive class in the GTs.
Definitely is. It's one of the toughest classes out on track. It is the biggest field as well in this race today. So 20 cars in GT. We've got 19 in the LMP2 field, and LMP1s we have 17 cars. We already have 2 out of the race, unfortunately. We of course saw a big incident early on, which did get some casualties and mix up this field, but glad to see most of the field still going. So we've just seen a change of position here. This is for 8th and 9th position in LMP2, sorry.
Yes, indeed. Remember, the LMP1 cars have roofs.
Yes, they do. I actually was looking at the timing screen. I wasn't even looking on screen, so it's caught me out already.
Well, either way, Brad Fenley and Shane Bowen right behind these guys, looking very racy coming into Mulsanne. Bowen just biding his time coming into the Mulsanne corner. They do have some traffic coming up. Roy Clark just ahead of them. And the first of the GTs that they will come to, yeah, they still got a fair ways to go. We've got a BMW slow, by the way. Bradley Matheson just come out of the pits and into the middle of the chicane. I'm not sure what happened to him.
I can't see on the timing screen that he's actually pitted.
Looks like he just spun on his own in the middle of turn 1, okay. And that extended pit exit was there to save him.
It's one of the few spots that there's a little bit of runoff is through that section of the circuit too. It's a track that bites hard, as we've already seen in this race. So I'm just going to go back to that front of GT because we have had a change of position again, but here comes Dance back through again.
Oh my goodness, coming into Mulsanne. Unfortunately, this is going to let Ball get a really good exit. They'll be running side by side all the way down this straight, probably.
Going to use the side draft as well to his advantage. I think, as you said, they're going to go side by side the whole way here. Who's going to have the biggest brakes? We're going to find out very, very soon.
Yeah, almost touching in a straight line, and an LMP2 behind them. Oh, this could get pretty awkward. Of course, Daniel Stevens at the wheel of that car, and he's just waiting, biding his time. He's got a front row seat to what was an excellent fight.
Good to see a bit of awareness from drivers in different classes. Some drivers are really, really smart about that. You know, if they're not in a battle themselves and they can see two cars in a fight, even though they're faster, they might hang back. And in other situations, other drivers are just send it up in there. I'm faster, I'm coming through. But that was really good to see from Stevens. Just waited for those guys to finish their fight and got them in a better spot. So Ball's coming back again.
Well, you know, usually when two guys at the front of the field are battling, we make comments about how they'd be slowing each other up, but it doesn't look like that's happening for these guys. They're still maintaining pace, despite making those passes.
Yeah, well, now 1.3 seconds back to Morton. So Morton's still looking strong. He's closing that gap down, but they're breaking away from everyone else at a fairly decent rate, those two, Ball and Dance. The only leaders involved in a battle at the moment are these two. The gap at the front of HPD is 4.6 seconds, and Blake Neck, Eric Thorpe is now at 7 seconds. So that's why we're focused on this battle here, because it is the closest fight for the lead of a class.
Blake Neck, meanwhile, has just come up to the rear of the GTE field and is making his way through that section, past a bunch of cars through the Porsche curves as he comes around to start his 7th lap. You can see the pace difference in pure straight line between the LMP1 and the GTs. The LMP1s have almost every other race car on the planet down on acceleration.
There's not many it doesn't beat in regards to acceleration and 0 to 100 speed, is there? There's not many out there that beat them at that early pace, is there? Maybe one or two in the world.
Yeah, and I know a couple of people would say drag racing cars, but they don't count as far as I'm concerned.
No.
They don't race on circuits.
Yep. And we've got our first pitter in LMP1. Perwin's in, so of course we've seen him in a little bit of trouble throughout this early stage of the race, but have a look at Jimmy Ball. He's ready to pounce again.
But doesn't quite take the chance. Very
Morton's
close
there
through
too.
the chicane, though. Yeah, he is, actually. Morton, this has really played into Morton's hands here. He's right back on the back of these guys now. Couple of extra drafts, and if he can put his acceleration down nicely, he'll be right back on the back of these guys.
Yep, definitely will. Of course, while they change position as well, that will then help the car of Morton close up. But he's managed to pull his Ball goes back through. He's already pulled 4 seconds on Foster. So it's a real three-way battle we're going to have for the lead in this class. Ferrari versus Porsche. Ferrari, Porsche, Ferrari, Porsche, Ferrari, Porsche. The top 6 at the moment.
And that really, it doesn't tell you much about the balance of performance. I think it does tell you a lot about where the drivers' hearts are, as Tance and Ball once again side by side with Blake Neck's LMP1 for company. Oh, goodness me!
Now, just gotta say something, Reese. Just hearing a little bit of banter within your team. Your comment about drag cars. I know your teammate, my former teammate as well, Squizzer. He won't be happy with what you just said there.
No, he won't. But
I'll
it's a
message him now.
fact. They don't race on circuits.
I agree. I agree. They don't count. Thanks to Scott Stevens for reminding me of that.
Of course, Squizzer and his dad, both part of an accomplished drag racing family. So, good to see the banter still going. As also going is that lead battle, and we have another LMP1 coming up on these guys. Should be by before the Porsche curves. Yeah, well before. Goodness me. Eric Thorpe just streaking by. See ya, mate.
Yep. Thorpe through very, very quickly, and pace difference is pretty extreme. 32 seconds a lap quicker at the moment, the LMP1s over. That's the lead LMP1s over the lead GTE, so that's a pretty impressive pace difference between them at the moment as Dean Mole tries to get his way through. He's going to have to do it the long way around though.
Oh, and there we go. That is one of the examples of ways that battles can be chopped and changed slightly. Now, this is a modem simulation replay, Jay. What's this for?
You've got Jeff McPherson. He's stopped on the circuit. Not sure exactly what has happened or how it has happened, but we'll see. Right now, you can see there too. That is Josh Purwin just behind, and
Oh,
that's a failure, I think.
yeah, either that or a quick lock up, maybe hitting a bump wrong. I'm not sure, but that's a real shame for him. Straight into the wall at Mulsanne.
Watch the wheel when he puts his foot on the brake. Just didn't do anything. I think that's a brake failure. Strange one.
Very interesting. Well, we'll see what comes of that, but GTE once again not letting up. Morton's fallen back from these guys again, but Ball and Dance right with each other now.
I think Morton's had another slowdown because he was right there. He's now 2 seconds back, so very, very good chance that he's had another slowdown. Now getting held up with a bit of traffic, but Ball through this. Oh, through the middle! You don't mind.
Oh dear.
It's Northway and Blankers in their own little battle at the moment. Jimmy Ball's through. Here comes Northway, going to get through up the inside. No, backs out of it. Wow, this is some good racing that we're seeing going on. There's another car slow there. Who was that was slow on the inside of the chicane there?
That's Rudy DeVray. He's down in 53rd position at the moment, so not having the best one.
He's probably just saw that big, huge pack of cars and thought, I'm getting out of the way. I don't want to be involved as Northway tries to come back through and get a move done. Not quite close enough again at this stage.
And that's another part of multi-class and endurance racing as well, as picking your battles. Sometimes you just need to let some other guys go if they're in the middle of a fight and look after yourself. Pat Gallo and Alexander Sheridan, meanwhile, they're looking very racy with a P1 behind them, and Harmsworth... Oh, hang on a minute.
Sheridan straight ahead.
I thought... Oh, dearie me. Unfortunately, that was a very late break from him, so I think maybe just missed the breaking point. It's a very easy one to miss.
Got through and then all of a sudden, whoops. And he actually had it on the brakes that late, he couldn't even pull it up for the little secondary chicane to stop people cutting the corner. As Cameron Dance back through side by side again, he and Jimmy Ball.
I think these guys are just going to be swapping positions all race.
They just want TV time, that's all they're doing.
Yeah, that's it. Or draft. You scratch my back, I scratch yours.
The issue they've got is when they keep chopping and changing, it allows Morton back up to catch up again. They're not, while it's smart in a way to let each other go, they're not doing it in the right way because they're still fighting under brakes a little bit too much, I feel. Because you can see Morton again, he was 2 seconds back, he's now back to 1.6, so he's closing in every time they change position. He's gaining a tenth or two. Morton is the fastest car in the class though, so definitely can't discount him from this battle. I love that shot, they're so close to the wall.
Yeah, of course, that wall was a newer addition to the Le Mans circuit to avoid heavy impacts with the concrete walls behind them. The circuit's changed a lot over the years. This entire section coming up to the chicanes that these guys are at the moment. This was first built in 1972, and the section that Cho and Roos are going through at the moment, that sweeper, that dates back to about 2002. It used to be a straight right up to these S's.
This is the closest battle in the LMP1 class. This guy's not too far away from the podium spot. Dean Mole, about 5 seconds up the road. You can just see him up in the distance there. I feel like Gabriel Ruse might be able to go through here. He's looking quick.
Yeah, he certainly is, but
fuel saving.
Yeah, not quite close enough for a move, and I think, considering that traffic right in front of them, it probably wasn't wise going for that move anyway. Scything right through the middle. And there we go, all done. It's over in an instant.
This is a very, very tight battle for a podium spot that isn't a GTE. Dane Burns, Michael Skurlock going at it at the moment.
Yeah, both of these guys looking pretty good at the moment. They've stayed consistent. Victor Folby, meanwhile, he was in second when they crossed the line last, but he's back behind them a fair ways. Oh, Jonathan Ben with some issues out of Mulsanne too. Perhaps overshooting it. We'll see exactly what happened here. Oh, yep, that's it. Got a bit unsettled, touching the curb, and around he went.
Did a good job recovering that one.
Yeah, nice.
Didn't lose too much. Didn't lose as much time as he potentially could have there.
And didn't interfere too much with cars that were already on the circuit either. That's the way you want to get it done.
Yep, 100%. You want to make sure that you maintain your own little battle. And, don't hold anyone else up. And did a good job there to recover it. Didn't lose a huge amount of time. Did lose a little bit, but actually now he's got himself in a battle with his teammate, Daniel Stevens. So this little battle's ended for now, but at the front of GTA, it's back on again.
Yeah, these guys just cannot leave each other alone, can they, Dance and Ball? Oh no, and that LMP2 battle we were just looking at, Jay, it's changed again, because Dwayne Burns has had to serve a slowdown.
He's going to lose another spot here too, I think.
Yeah, he's going to go all the way back to 4th, so he, for a moment, held second in this one. Oh, and just like that, Matthew Clote right up ahead of these guys. Oh. He's having some car control issues coming through the chicane. And this has brought this battle right back together. This is going to be second place at LMP2. Side by side between Folby and Skurlock, and Burns hasn't lost much out of this.
And how's that for Victor Folby, just doing his own thing, and all of a sudden, bang, gone from 4th to 2nd, didn't have to do anything. Just straight through on 2 drivers that had issues around him, and he's gone from 4th to 2nd within a couple of kilometres.
And that's another thing you got to look out for, is consistency and being opportunistic. That's what Folby did.
100%. We go back to GTEs again, because Ball is right there on Dance. Mitchell Bales just tucked in behind. He's going to try and get through, but he's a little bit off the pace, is Mitchell Bales. These guys are actually fighting for outright position at the moment, but I don't think it'll be too much of a fight here as Bales gets through. Has just been in the pits for 5 minutes, so he's having some sort of issue as Mitchell Bales in the green LMP1, and there's contact between Dance and Bales. Wow.
Man, well, I mean, that's going to happen when you're an LMP1 that's a bit slower versus the lead in GTE. Of course, Dance has his way of taking that turn, and it looks like Bales slowed down a bit more than Dance was expecting, and around he went.
Yep, and Dance didn't really do too much wrong, just anticipating the pace of LMP1s, and all of a sudden there's a car stopped almost on the apex from what he was expecting anyway, so no race control. We'll look at that one during the week. I'm sure that'll be discussed quite a lot.
Yes, indeed, and Bales is going to try and make his way back through here and put a good bit of distance between himself and Dance this time as they go down the straight.
There's another car coming through as well. That's Josh Pervin as well coming through. And have a look at who's right there now with that little hold-up from Mitchell Bales. Philip Morton's right there again.
Definitely is. And Dance and Ball bumper to bumper in the braking zone. Have a look at Morton's lines, though. He's really being aggressive with the curbs, and that's been to his detriment once or twice now. We see another replay. What's happened this time, Jay?
Michael Skurlock around the final chicane. Whoa!
Yeah, that's another easy thing to do. It's a very misleading sequence of turns, that forward chicane.
And while we were on the replay, we've missed another pass for the lead. So I think that's 9 passes for the lead now in GTE in half an
hour. I don't think it matters the fact that you missed it. I mean, it's become the norm by now. Pass for the lead at the braking zone. Okay, there we go. Yep, yet another one. And Morton is looking to really take advantage this time. Aggressive on the brakes, and now he's right with Dance.
Yeah, Morton's going to be the one to watch. He could nearly get 2 for 1 because he did get a great run as well. So will he be able to capitalise, get a move done? This is going to be tight. Don't think he's quite close enough to get the 2, but he could get Dance.
Yeah, well, Dance is going to get Ball here, going side by side. And that's well before the entry to Indianapolis, so not much Ball can do about that. It's always such an intense sequence here. You're on the brakes and turning and trying desperately to keep your car to the right-hand side of the circuit, so you get a good entry for that left-hander. Actually looks like Dance has gotten a really good exit that time. Ball had a little bit of a spin-up. Brought him into the clutches of Morton. So Dance has a bit of a gap now, which he would find desirable, but that hard-charging Philip Morton behind him is going to have plenty of other ideas.
Morton threw in a second, and once that's done, it's given Dance around about 7/10 of a second advantage, so he will now sort of feel a little bit of breathing room for a tiny little bit. Won't take long before Morton closes that gap up. Best lap Philip Morton was the last lap by. First driver to do a low 348.15 and a 348.2 in the last 2 laps. He is on fire at the moment.
Doing very well in terms of pace right now. Meanwhile, our LMP1 leader, Blake Neck, just making his way out of Mulsanne through traffic as his lead over Eric Thorpe has continued ballooning. Actually, it's gone down slightly, fluctuated a little bit. It's remaining at about 6.5 seconds with this traffic.
Yeah, it's going to fluctuate between 5 and 7 seconds over the next little bit. Their actual race pace is very identical right now, but just where you catch the traffic and where you get through and how easy and quickly you get through is going to determine how big that gap is. And you can see there Thorpe at the moment got a little bit of space around him. He's got a little bit of clean air. Try and capitalise on that at the moment and try and close that gap down. Not as easy as it sounds, as here comes Morton potentially to take the lead back. Or will this make it 11 lead changes now?
This is absolutely fantastic, and it's why people in real life love the GTE class so much at Le Mans. There's always so much battling going on. It looks like Morton's been able to make that one stick.
Yep, did it fairly easily into Mulsanne 1, and now gonna have to try and hold on because Dance is coming back here and coming back fairly quickly.
Just noticing him lift off ever so slightly.
Yep.
He's not making a huge amount of gains, but he doesn't need to at this stage. As long as he can save a little bit more fuel.
You could see it there from the onboard. You actually could see the RPM go up and down, up and down. You could hear it in the engine note as well. So he definitely is saving a bit of fuel, trying to plan for this pit stop. As we said before, I was about to say the pit window is probably about to open. Here it is. It's opened in our HBD class. LMP1 class. Done it again. Looking at the timing screen and not the actual race. Nah, look at it. Everyone's coming in here. Blake Neck has stayed out though. That's interesting. The Audis looking like they might be able to get an extra lap.
Yeah, well, that's always been something that the Audi can do at Le Mans, both in real life and in the simulators. So that 4-litre twin-turbo diesel V6 is using a bit less, a little less thirsty per lap than the turbo V4 of the Porsches. So all the Porsches in to get themselves topped up. Eric Thorpe out. So we take a look at Blake next, scything past those GTs. There is Mr. Thorpe.
25-second stop for Thorpe, and he's been the longest stop out of the Porsches that did pit there. 23 seconds for Dean Mull. So we'll compare those pit stop times, and before the stops, the gap was 6.7 seconds. So we'll see what it is when Blake Neck comes in. No doubt that'll be this lap. He comes in to make his service. Go back to this battle in GTE. Morton, Dance and Ball still going at it.
Yeah, Dance has actually managed to gain quite a bit on Morton coming up to the Porsche curves. And they do have a little bit of traffic of their own there. That's another GTE of Matt Hunter. Morton having to take a slightly less conventional line, but ultimately looks like that's going to be a clean letting by of the leaders.
Lucky for Morton that was that position on the circuit and not somewhere else, because you can get slowdown penalties for cutting and using those lines like that. So he's obviously got away with that one. Now Morton continues on, and we'll probably see another lead change on this lap. Got a feeling that we will. Maybe we'll see two.
Yeah, I'll raise you one. We'll go for 3 lead changes on this lap. How about that?
Every chance of that. Oh no.
Oh dear. That's no good. Rory Boyd completely missing the front end of his Audi.
And he's just come out of the pits too.
Entry. Oh, he's just come out of the pits.
Yeah, he's just come out of the pits and done that. So I'm going to guess he's taken some fresh tyres and has forgotten that they're cold and looped it around. And this is the sort of incident we've seen a lot in real life.
Oh,
that's a heavy hit.
Goodness me. And as we say that, our race leader Blake Neck in the pits now. So we'll take a look at what happened on board from Rory Boyd. Yeah, just getting on the brakes for those S's. Tyres not up to temperature, and round he went. So let's see what Blake Neck can do in the pits, touring at a stately 60 kilometers an hour.
And all the Audis are coming in.
Yep, Borja Bueno is coming in as well.
He got an extra lap in the Porsches.
Pit. Yeah. Obviously, all of that traffic running benefited him.
Blake Neck still hasn't actually reached his pit stall yet, as Thorpe comes out of, or comes up to the Ford chicane.
Wow, Blake Neck was barely stopped at all.
Oh, what's happened there for Blake Neck? 0.4 of a second. Something weird's going on there for Blake Neck. This doesn't seem right. Actually, my other timing screen is saying 20 seconds, so that seems a bit more right. 20 seconds sounds a little bit more correct than... They're just seeing Dean Moles through on Eric Thorpe.
Well, that's certainly unexpected.
I think Thorpe's had a slowdown here.
Yeah, looks like it.
It's the second part of the chicane here. I reckon when he ran really wide on the exit earlier in the, or at the back part of the lap there when we were on board, I reckon he's got to slow down from that section there. So that's where we've seen Thorpe lose a spot. So we go back to the lead of GT. We hadn't seen a lead change while we haven't been watching them.
Oh my goodness, what a shock.
I think they're saving it up for when they're back on the TV.
Yeah, probably. Philip Morton leading this fight and leading the class. Dancing Ball once again following him line astern. And these guys will be coming more towards the end of their first fuel cycle.
Got another incident out on track, Greece.
Mr. Perween on the exit of the chicane, or possibly down towards the S's. Has he done? Yes, he has. There we go. Little bit of a slide. It hasn't done too much damage, but looks like he'd had enough by that point.
Yeah, I think it was a car not feeling well. He'd been in the pits a few times already, so I think he'd decided that his car's too heavily damaged and it might be day done. The leaders in this class, the GTE, start their 12th lap of this race. Blake Neck in the HPD on his 13th.
He's in an LMP1, Jay.
Oh, yes, I know. I know. I'm just going to shut up now for the rest of the day. It's been a lot. I know you do. I know you do. I won't actually shut up.
Believe me.
I'll just make sure I don't say car classes anymore. Eric Thorpe about to come back on Dean Molo in the Porsches.
Yeah, these guys are obviously teammates at Kinetic Swift, so they don't want to give each other too much trouble.
Doesn't mean they won't fight, though.
No, certainly not. I mean, fighting is what we want to see, right?
100%. And these guys both very, very competitive drivers. We've seen in all different series. Of course, Dean Mole, we saw throughout last year's major series, was there in contention for the championship coming up in the final couple of rounds. And Eric Thorpe, we've seen as well, very, very competitive driver, always gives 110%. So these guys, when they get close, it's going to be a really interesting fight. Oh, it was a little mistake there for Thorpe. Oh, that wheel just did not look right when he turned there.
No, certainly not. And that last turn in the Porsche curve's very misleading. It's a lot tighter than it looks. You have to lift off, maybe even brake a little and go down a gear in the LMP ones. Otherwise, you're just going to run wide on the exit, and that's going to get you a slowdown.
Yep. Actually lost around about 7 or 8 tenths just from that little moment there. We have had a change of position in GTE. Cameron Dancer's back to third, Jimmy Ball into second, and he's got a run here.
This is looking interesting between the two Ferraris. Will Ball go for it?
Of course he will.
Yes, he will. Of course he will. He doesn't seem to be one of those drivers that that focuses on fuel saving. Oh, they nearly touched through that kink. Goodness me. That's about as close as you want to get coming into Mulsanne.
Have a look at how close this was here for Philip Morton.
Yeah, we'll see it on board. And you'll see Jimmy Ball right there through that kink. Which, another historical fun fact, was another one of the modifications done to the track. Used to be that it was a straight up right turn at the end of the straight as Morton takes the lead back very promptly at the exit of Indianapolis.
Had another number on the lead change counter. 13.
Dance is right back into this as well. Looks like Dance is going to hold back just slightly, but Morton's saying, "Hey, Jimmy, I'd like to stay in the lead for a bit longer, please."
Dance will actually be enjoying this because this is a chance for him to save fuel while they fight. He probably isn't too upset about being third in the line as opposed to being the leader. You can save the most fuel when you're 2 cars back. You get the double draft advantage, so you can go about 75-80% throttle instead of 100% throttle on these huge long straights. So it's a huge advantage being able to save fuel being 3rd car back.
Yeah, for sure. You're getting that double draft down the straights too, so you'll still be doing round about the same speed you would if you didn't have anyone in front of you.
Yep.
Even if you lift off.
Yep. It's a huge advantage, and with how prevalent the draft is at this circuit, how much drafting opportunities there are, it's a huge, huge advantage. And we said the gap at the front of LMP1 at pit stops, before the pit stops, was 6.7 seconds. It is now 15.6. So Blake Neck's got a huge advantage with that extra lap and shorter pit stop. So the Audi looks like it might have been the car of choice. There's only 2 at the moment in the top 10 in that class, but
we got to also remember Eric Thorpe's had his issues, so
True.
The actual second place in LMP1 is Gabriel Roos, who was previously, I believe, 3rd.
Yeah, well, actually, just noticed too, Dean Mole's dropped off.
Yeah, there was an issue for Dean Mole. That was at Mulsanne 1. Looks like he had to get on the brakes to avoid a bit of traffic, and around he went, as we see LMP2s in the pits now.
Yep, Purnell, Folby, Burns, Skurlock, Benefield, Court all coming in. And that order will probably stay the same. Looks like everyone is coming in that class. Literally everyone.
Yeah, well, they're all driving the same car, so there's not much you can play with. Whoa!
Around the outside.
On earth? My goodness. Okay, I've got to see that again. I have to see that again. What happened?
Done. Here's a replay for you, Reese.
There we go. Let's have a look at what happened with Jimmy Ball and Philip Morton. Of course, Morton's staying right in the middle of the road, daring Ball to pick a side, and he does. It's not the optimum one.
Morton's back through.
Oh,
while we're watching this replay, so that's 15 lead changes now.
All right. No worries. Just another day at the office.
And Dancer's going to come back through here too.
He's going to attempt to, at least. Oh, yeah, he's got the run. Maybe this is the chance that he's been waiting for to start getting aggressive. Remember, these guys haven't pitted yet.
And coming up on 50 minutes of racing too. They're about 10 minutes away from making that first pit stop. But if they want to break it into even segments, they're probably about the point 2 now. So anytime from now, 50 odd minutes in, gives them another 2 50 odd minute stints, close to. So from now, you might see some of these guys in GTE jump in the pits.
Yes, indeed. Speaking of GTE, there's been an awful issue for Jason Martin. He's actually missing his front end, so that's no good for him as Dance makes the move once again. Okay, obviously it's a problem on my end because I can't see his front bumper, but you apparently can, Jay.
Yeah, I can, but it doesn't look right. There is a big crink and crease over that front left-hand wheel, and down on pace for sure too. You can just hear from the throttle note or from the engine note that there's something not right. So he will probably bring it in soon and get some damage fixed, but it's going to hurt this championship lead that he's got at the moment. Only 8 points, so not much in it. So Cameron Dance will be enjoying at the moment being where he is and seeing that his championship rival in Jason Martin is a little bit down the order.
While Daniel Stevens just made a move on Ramon Regalado in LMP2. Those two guys pretty close together, and they've got a good fight behind them. John King, Brad Fenley, and Shane Bowen. These guys have been going at it for quite some time now. 5-way battle for the last couple positions in the top 10 in this class.
There's a couple of guys out of order in this class as well. One of them is Fenley goes through, no, backs out of it at the last second. A few guys out of position, one of them being the lead car in this battle pack. Daniel Stevens did come in early, as well as Martin Hallen and a little bit up the road. And the second place car in the class, as well, is out of position too, Marco Ditnak, who did pit early as well. So not quite all as it seems in this class at the moment. All on different strategies and different pit stops or different times. Whoa.
Tell you what, that's some aggression there. Oh, coming through Indianapolis. I mean, the car's got the downforce, but my goodness.
Just because it's got the downforce doesn't mean you need to use it like that. It's a little bit scary, and you and I have both driven this car a little bit, and it's sometimes doesn't behave like you'd expect when you try to do moves like that.
Yeah, that's it. It's very sensitive to bumps, micro bumps in the middle of corners, and like the LMP ones, you have to trust that the car is going to grip. Like through a section like this, the Porsche curves, if you're in the lead of this pack or leading these two like John King is, you obviously have a lot of grip. Of course, that BMW is not going to help him with that, but that's an example of how it's done. And that's an example of how you can gap your rivals.
Saw on the timing screen that Dance was beside Philip Morton, but didn't quite get through, and he's let Jimmy Ball close back up. We'll go back to this other battle though, and that BMW has helped John King because he did manage to pull a little bit of a gap, just sliding through just before the next corner there, and it meant that Bowen Finley did drop a little bit of time. So you'll jump up the timing sheets with those guys pitting out of sequence, all in the pits now. Go back to the lead in GTE because it is on again.
Certainly is, and the man at the wheel of that BMW was Matthew Clote, just to clarify. But these guys, well even, coming on the run up to Indianapolis, and oh dear, Morton going defensive already. He obviously feels threatened here.
Look at the overspeed that Jimmy Ball's got.
Oh my goodness. He's not holding back, is he?
No.
Look out.
And Blake next coming up to watch this as well. He's in the box seat to watch this battle.
Oh my goodness. This could get very awkward. Dance is going to let off early to let Neck by, but those two Ferraris up the top, they're just continuing on their merry way as Neck blasts by them on the exit.
That's cost Dance a little bit of time, nearly a second, so they'll have to use a bit more fuel now to close that gap back down. We are hit almost an hour 30 to go. So we've been 54 minutes of racing, and it has flown by so quick because there's been so much going on.
And there's a lot more to go on as well.
Not
You
wrong.
only have to look at the sky and the position of the sun in it to see what we have in store. The sun's almost dipping below the horizon.
Yep, you can see how dark the cloud, or sorry, how dark the sky is slowly starting to get. It's getting a little bit darker out there. In they come. Here we go. Look at them all follow each other in.
And this double chicane on the entry to the pits is one of the more difficult ones to get right. Fortunately, it seems they've all managed to do so. So it is Morton and then Ball and then Dance making their way in.
See if the group behind continue on, and that fourth place car, Jason Harmsworth, is continuing on. So I think this might be a strategy call from these three guys, that as soon as one of them jumped in, they've all just followed to make sure that they all stick together in this battle pack. They didn't want to be out in clean air. They wanted to be able to maintain draft with two other evenly matched cars. So interesting little strategy ploy. It's definite that that's a strategy call. So that's a car facing the wrong way.
And it looks like Ball had the fastest pit stop out of all of them. He has come out of this in front. Meanwhile, Morton and Dance very close, and Dance just moving out of Morton's way as they come up to the pit exit. So Jimmy Ball takes your effective race lead in GTE.
Go back to the front, or the middle of HPD. Bowen has closed that gap back down to John King, and I feel like we've said that a lot over the last year and a half in the major series. The battle between John King and Shane Bowen. It's been great to see these guys who have raced in pretty much every race in this championship in the international side of the majors. It's great to see them out on track each and every round.
That's it, and their dedication is what brings them the results that they end up getting. You know, you have a lot of guys that come and go, some of which could definitely be in contention for the championship if they stayed for more than a few races, but of course life and other factors can sometimes get in the way of that. Meanwhile, that's another lead change in GTE. And we're starting to sound like broken records now.
Well, it's technically not a lead change because they're for third and fourth at the moment, so we won't add that on the timing on our little spreadsheet at the moment. But
Okay.
we'll have it back. Saying that, we do have a new leader, that being Jason Harmsworth. So we have 14 lead changes. We have had 14 lead changes, if I could speak English. It's not too
Ball
far.
trying to use that LMP2 draft.
Oh, he's done a good job too.
See, that's another example of opportunistic driving. Sometimes, if you want to get the move done, you just jump out when a faster car's gone by and let them pull you along a little bit more.
Here comes Morton back again. He's going to get the job done again.
It seems like all of these guys know the name of the game now. They've made it very clear to each other what they're trying to do. The only thing they need to be wary of is to not trip over each other.
And the way that they're racing, there's every chance that we will see that later on. Still a fair way to go, under 90 minutes of racing to go, but there is a very, very probable chance that we're going to see these guys trip over each other and end in tears for one of these three, maybe two of these three, possibly all three of them. They're still side by side. How did they do that? Too early for that. No ball!
Oh, there we go. Does that count as commentator's curse?
I don't know. I think I don't think it is. I think we saw that happening. I think we saw that coming. That's different.
Alright, we wipe our hands clean of that one. Let's see what happened once again. Ball on the outside into Indianapolis. I mean, they didn't make contact, but Ball obviously overshooting. Tried to get the car turned, but those rears locked up and around he went.
He's lost about 8 seconds from that as well, so it's going to be tough for him to close back up. Well, that's done. It's now meant Morton and Dance are going to be embroiled in a battle for the lead in GTE as Harmsworth comes into the pits. We're now in as well, so looks like rest of the field in GTE have decided now's the time to come in and pit.
Well, Dance and Morton up the front as they were, and as they will be. Meanwhile, little battle going on for LMP2, 5th and 6th. Hayden Benefield and Alex Court very close to each other here.
Hayden Benefield, the younger brother of Daniel Benefield, the name that we are very, very familiar with here at SimSpeed. Of course, won the very first race in the international division of the majors last year at the Daytona 2.4, the classic Daytona 2.4 as it was last year. It's a very well-known driver. It's Daniel Benefield, and great to see Hayden out on track now.
Yeah, he's not doing too badly either, managing to hold down a top 5 in the same car that his brother's had so much success in.
He's improved so much in the last 4 or 5 months as well. I remember when we first saw his name appear, he was an absolute back marker, was spinning the car all the time, was struggling to control it. Now he's just lapping really consistently. His pace is always really good. He's not the fastest driver, but he's always really consistent, and I think that's the key to his good racing, is they come actually past the lead cars in GTE, that being Morton and Dance.
And Court's had a harder time with them than Hayden has. Just seems like wasn't quite up to where he needed to be before the braking zone, so he had to stay behind.
Good awareness as well there from Court. As we said before, you can sometimes be embroiled in your own little battle, not pay too much attention to the other classes around you, and understand how you need to handle those little battles, mini battles within themselves, and handle the traffic. That was really good awareness. He did sacrifice his own little battle. What it's meant is he can continue in the fight and not potentially cause an accident with still half the race to go.
Mikko Dotanak and Brad Fenley going side by side meanwhile. You've got to keep in mind Fenley's alternate strategy, we'll call it. He is looking pretty pacey, though, versus Dotanak.
Very, very pacey, and I think if that Porsche wasn't there, I think we might have seen a move made or attempted to be made there. I just noticed on the timing sheet, something's happened to John King. I have missed that, but he's been stopped for 3 minutes.
Wow, okay.
He's dropped back to the last of our runners in the LMP2 class.
With very heavy damage. Most of the car's bodywork was actually missing. So I'm going to go back, see what happened to him.
Here we go. I think we've got it on replay now.
We do too.
Oh, wow!
Oh, dear. Oh, no.
Is that Shane Bowen involved in that too?
Oh, man. That's the last thing that you want to see happen. And Josh Perween in the P1, obviously not expecting them to take up as much of the track as that, and
oh, that's not good.
Probably would have paid to back out of that one.
Yeah, that was not the smartest idea, and King's done a really good job to bring that back to the pits.
He certainly has. Here's the onboard view from the back of him. There goes Perween trying to make his way through, and, well, King, there was nothing he could do.
Nah,
absolutely nothing.
He was an absolute passenger.
Cars completely out of control.
And I'll tell you what, have a look at the damage. As you said, all the bodywork was missing, but look at the steering damage as he was limping it back to the pits there.
Oh, that wouldn't have been fun to drive.
Nope, not at all. He has managed to get it back out on track. He has lost a lap effectively to the leader in that class, Chris Purnell. not too far behind him out on track, but he is still on the lead lap. As you just see Alex caught through on Hayden Benefield, but Benefield coming back here.
And this is on the run up to Mulsanne 2. So, Benefield obviously with the better exit. Actually, my mistake. This is Mulsanne 1 that they're coming up to. And Benefield round the outside. Very well done.
And that battle we were just watching earlier between Fenley and Dutnak has ended. Dutnak was stopped on the circuit. Not sure exactly what's happened, but we'll get another Modem Simulation replay.
Yeah, Mirko in this opening section of the lap. Is that Jimmy Ball that he's passing?
It is.
Oh, and just lost it by himself on the inside.
Ball did a good job to avoid him there, but Jimmy Ball is now 17 seconds back from Danson Morton. So he's had another issue. Last lap by was 7 seconds slower.
Looks like some of the fatigue might be setting in. The race is over, an hour done now. The drivers have to start being careful because they are gradually starting to see less and less out there too as it gets darker. Those headlights are going to be much more important.
Last lap by to Eric Thorpe gained 2 seconds back on Blake next, so it's now down to 13 seconds. Eric Thorpe is on a charge. He just did the fastest lap in that class out of the lead few cars. Gabriel Roux is actually the fastest driver on track at the moment. Last lap by did a 17.2. He starts to close in on Dean Mole.
Yes, indeed. Roos showing some really good pace out there at the moment. And a very clean-looking car as well. So he's on absolute attack mode in this part of the race. And that's a GTE battle between Dial and Sheridan. LMP1 coming to the party as well.
And he's gone. Party's over for that LMP1.
My good Jesus, man.
See you guys.
Look at how fast they are down the straight. Like, I drive the LMP1 a lot, but I don't often get to see it from the GT perspective. So, my goodness, that just blows me away.
336 kilometers an hour coming into Mulsanne 2 for Eric Thorpe just then. So, incredible pace that they have as you just see the 14 car of Gabriel Roux come through, as we were just talking about him before. Doesn't actually show the live speed on the dash in these cars, but I can tell you right now doing 317 kilometers an hour before he puts his foot on the brake through that kink. Incredible pace that these cars have.
Yeah, and that kink is like nothing to these cars. Hard on the brakes, harvest your energy, and then burn most of it up on the exit. It's fantastic to watch people drive LMP1 cars, let alone drive one on the sim. Caught back in front of Benefield, meanwhile. These guys are trading places. Benefield doing the old headlight flash trick.
Well, actually starting to take effect now, so...
Yeah.
We'll be doing a little bit more of those headlight flashes. It's still a fair bit of daylight, but it's... Oh no, Benefield!
Oh! Through Tete Rouge? My goodness.
Wow, that was...
I have no words for that. I've never had an error like that before.
Let's watch the
in my own experience, so wow. Just caught the grass on entry.
And how good a job did he do to maintain control? That could so easily have been in the wall, race done.
Absolutely, but in a car with as much downforce as the HBD, you have to have the presence of mind to realise, okay, I don't have to overcorrect this, I can just straighten out the wheel and I'll see what the car does. And fortunately for Hayden, it straightened out rather nicely. Still great reaction from him.
Definitely was. It was a really good reaction and showed a great maturity to be able to do that. It's not easy to do, as you said. It goes against all of your standard characteristics and your standard reflexes to maintain control of the car in that way. So you did a really good job. As we just were watching D-Mole close in on Dennis Cho, but he's lost a lot of momentum there. Just caught that BMW at the wrong place, wrong time. And also just seeing too, look at the gap between these two guys. 3.3 seconds at the front of GTE. The draft has finally been broken.
Okie dokes. So that's some real measured stuff there by Philip Morton to get that gap, and I'm not quite sure how that even happened. Because
I think there's been a corner cut somewhere.
Maybe, yeah. Dance was much closer at the start of the lap, so it must have been in the Dunlop chicane. Just coming into it now.
Or was it a mistake, or was it corner cut? I think you're right. I think corner cut right there.
Oh, yep, there we go. Yep, that was a corner cut to be sure. You can't take too much of the inside in that second section of the chicane. That must be very painful for Cameron.
You have to work hard to get that back, and this is we were watching there to see Dean Mole close up on Dennis Cho. Look at the gap for the second, third, and fourth in this class now. 2.4 seconds between second and third, and under 2 seconds between third and fourth. We're going to see a very, very interesting second half of this race in the LMP1 class, because we've got 3 cars in contention for 2 spots on the podium here.
Absolutely, and this kind of ebb and flow, these guys didn't start coming together in the way they did until after the pit stops, and that's one of the big draws of endurance racing as well. Monitoring what's going on, seeing the numbers change, and the drivers come together on track. It all just seems to coalesce. And you can actually see the headlight beams hitting the circuit now.
In the next half an hour or so, we'll see a little bit more darkness in the sky, and the headlights taking almost full effect as Alexander Sheridan and Colin Herman battling together at the moment. Of course, we saw Sheridan battling before with Mark Dial, I believe, so he's dropped a bit of ground. His last lap was actually 4 minutes 7, so that's a little bit off the pace from what you'd expect.
Just slightly. Sheridan, meanwhile, holding on to 10th spot in the GTE class.
They've got our first lull in the race. It's taken an hour and 10 minutes, but we've got our first little lull, but it's not much of a lull, as I just see another car stopped out on the circuit. That's not the preferred line.
Certainly not. Deltonac with problems, and Grant Patullo bringing his HPD into the pits.
I'm seeing another car stopped out on track too. It's Martin Hallinan also having trouble, I believe, at the same spot.
Oh, there we go. Another rear brake lock.
Here's Hallinan having a similar issue. You just saw there, huge lockup.
Overshot. That first section of the forward chicane is fast, yes, but you have to slow down for it a little bit more than you think.
So we come back live.
Grant Patullo in the pits just taking service for his car.
Morton to Dance is extended even further, so Dance has lost another second. So that's almost all over as we go to our championship leader. We haven't focused on him too much in this race, but he's feeling a bit of pressure right now from Gavin Barber behind.
Yeah, for sure he is, and of course Martin has been carrying a bit of damage most of the race, so his times for a while weren't the best, but now it seems he's got a bit of a cleaner car. He's setting times in the 353s. Oh, careful. King just squeezing by.
Oh, Martin.
No. Yeah, there we go. It's a very narrow section of racetrack through there. If another car's passing you, it's incredibly awkward to get a good flow going through there.
Seeing as well on the timing sheet that something's happened to James Foster. Let's see if we can pick up a replay as to what's happened there. Of course, we saw Foster in that lead battle pack for so long. Something's happened to him.
Well, he was in P12, coming down into the Mulsanne chicane, and there we go. As the track cools down, front end grip goes up. So the guys need to be wary of that coming into these braking zones.
Go back to this battle between Benefield and Court. They've changed position again.
Yeah, they're having a nice little trading blows sort of battle here at the moment. There aren't many other cars around them at this time. Goodness me. BMW letting them go on the inside.
Just
Gotta be careful in that section.
Overshot the chicane a little bit there, did Alex Court.
Yeah, it seems very tempting to get on the brakes super late and drive it hard into these corners, but Le Mans is a kind of circuit that sort of almost rewards underdriving. You got to make sure that you just keep your grip up, your line's consistent, as we see our Porsches once again into the pits. Have a look at them all go in. All together as one big family. And then there's cousin Audi.
Cousin or stepbrother?
Stepsister. Step sibling. That seems pretty accurate.
So, had around about a 13-second lead before we saw those Porsches jump into the pits. We'll see what the lead breaks down to after the next pit stop, but you'd think based on Blake Neck's pace at the moment, he's probably going to have around about an 18 or 19 second lead.
Yeah, it definitely seems that way. Of course, in times past at Le Mans, you'd barely see anyone driving the Audi, as Matt Hunter with some issues on the exit of Arnage.
It damaged the rear of that car.
This is coming into Indianapolis. It seems clean enough through here, but the run up to Arnage can be very misleading. Let's have a look at how he takes the entry. He just went over the curb and a bit too fast through there.
Yeah. It looked like the wheels actually come off the ground when he hit that curb, and it's probably unsettled the car a little more than he would have expected, but continues on. He's about to gain a spot from James Foster, who has decided he is day done. So when he comes past the start line, he'll gain a position. Go back to this battle between Court and Benefield because they're continuing on.
It definitely seems like Court is hanging back slightly versus Benefield, using those straights to bring down the gap just slightly. But through the Porsche curves, he has to be wary because the HPD's a car very sensitive to downforce. Benefield, with no one in front of him, he'll have a bit more front grip and stability at his disposal. Court's having to work those tyres just a little bit harder. Get on the throttle just a little bit later. Maybe even run some alternative lines, but you can see that Benefield gained about a car length on him through that entire section.
Just looked a little bit smoother, didn't he? It was almost like Court was overdriving the car a little bit and lost himself a little bit of ground, but he's closed it all back up under brakes. And Benefield, big slide coming out of the Ford chicane.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I have noticed that about Benefield on the exits of the chicanes, as he does seem to have a little bit more of a nervous rear end, which would help him in the high-speed stuff. But here in the low-speed stuff, you can tell he's having to work the wheel a bit more than Court is.
Yep, it's a definite advantage, the favour of Alex Court in this section of the circuit. But as you said, getting onto the straights, Benefield just unloads and away that car seems to go. The FT1 car is a little bit of a wiggle there for Alex Court as well. He did hold on there very well.
Benefield would have gotten a slowdown from that, surely. Unless he was able to get back onto the circuit before the
slowing up
section ended. Yep, there we go. Will he be able to keep the position, though?
I don't think so.
Yeah, he's not defending it, so through goes Alex Court on the inside. And just in time, we have a little bit of GT traffic ahead.
So it'll negate a lot of that lost time that Benefield had there.
Ferrari being driven by Sebastian Cienko. He's currently 41st overall.
A little bit of no man's land at the moment. 26 seconds to the car ahead, being Gavin Barber, and the car behind of Phil Otto, about 20 seconds back. So hasn't really got much going on at the moment. So we go back to this battle between Court and Benefield. This is a very, very tight fight right now.
Yeah, these two coming down this back stretch up towards Indianapolis. Michael Skurlock is the next car up ahead from these guys, and he is right on the verge of entering Indianapolis right now. So these guys have a lot of time to make up.
It's 21 seconds back, these guys. So based on their current pace, they are lapping a little bit quicker than Skurlock, but hard to get that much time back in these sort of races. You almost think that it's unlikely it'll gain that much time.
Caught nice and smooth into Indianapolis. And that, I believe, is our leader right behind them. Oh, that ain't good for Court on the exit. He just got a bit of the AstroTurf. That's brought Benefield right back into it. Okay, so we've seen how these cars handle each other when it's Benefield in front in the Porsche curves. What about with Court in front? Benefield, too aggressive. He's going to go wide. He keeps it out of the gravel, though.
I don't know how.
That little strip of blue tarmac saved him.
Sure did. And just noticing, too, something's happened to Dean Mole. He's down in 7th. He was fighting for a podium spot not that long ago. Put him in net 6th on track, so something's happened to Dean Mole.
It looks like he's down on straight line. Quite sure what's going on.
Has he used all of his boost and just struggling to get it back up again, or is there something more to this?
I don't know. He's I'm trying to go back and see what happened to him specifically, but I can't see any specific event.
Slow pit stop, I'm noticing. But I'm guessing that would have been tyres at the stop. So, yeah, I'm not sure either, but he's definitely down from where we saw him before the stops, because we saw him right with Dennis Cho. Gabriel Roos was behind these guys. He's now 10 seconds ahead of Cho. So, this is interesting, that little battle. As you go back to Benefield and Court, have a look at the headlight flashing there from from Hayden Benefield. Getting the wrong Benefield name.
Side by side on the run down to Mulsanne 1. Court is on the inside, but we've seen Benefield make that move around the outside before. Oh, just does it again.
Oh, no!
Oh, there we go. That's that rear end instability I was talking about, and that's damage to the right rear quarter. He's going to lose pace. Big time. One thing you don't want to do in the HPD is damage the rear of the car. That's where the diffuser is. That's where most of the downforce is generated. He'll have to assess that.
I actually think he's mistakenly dropped it back down to 2nd gear.
Alright, let's hear the onboard then.
Watch the dash.
Oh, it went down to 1st.
Yeah. I think he's put it back into 1st by mistake. It's just got wheel spin, and around it went. It went, I should say. Dean Mole back in the pits as well, so definitely something not right for Dean Mole.
Yeah, I'm looking at his car. He's carrying a bit of damage on his rear wing, so obviously some more issues for him.
Dance is closing back on Morton as well. It's down to 2 seconds. Almost in draft range.
This could certainly be the battle to look at. They got an LMP1 between them.
Hearing that Dennis Cho had to hold for 15 seconds at the pit stop, which is why his stop was a lot longer. 54-second stop for Dennis Cho, so that's why he's shuffled out of position, out of sequence. Explains quite a lot.
Certainly does. It's easy to get that kind of penalty as well, because slowing down for the pits can It's one of the most difficult things to do at Le Mans, actually. Far more difficult than at most other circuits.
Hearing as well that Dean Mole had an issue with a GTE through the Porsche curves. So that's why he had that damage. We do have a battle for second and third now. Thorpe has lost the second position through the shuffling in the pit stops. Blanca's in the lead, but I don't believe he's taken tyres at the stop. Only 28 second pit stop, as we're about to hit 1 hour to go.
Yeah, Antoine Blancas and Eric Thorpe close together for second in LMP1, and Antoine, oh dear.
Benefield's hit the wall again.
Big slow through the Porsche curves. And that was right through the corner where he ran wide the lap before.
He's pushing it too hard with that damage, isn't he?
That's it. Car will be a lot more unstable with that superficial damage, and he is back in the pits now.
Smart move to get it in the pits, get the damage fixed, get that spare car back out there and go again. This is going to be an interesting little fight here. How quickly can Eric Thorpe get through? I'm fairly sure we're seeing fresh tyres versus old tyres here in this little battle.
Yeah, seems that way. The Audi has a little bit less power at its disposal, but Porsche really make use of that rubber underneath it. And Blanca's unsettled. Thorpe had to back out there. While in front of them, they do have an LMP2 that could make things interesting. Martin Hallinan. They got to take care through this section. How much of the boost will they use? There go both of them. At this point, if you're in a battle with another LMP1, you have to think, do I use up a bit more of my boost on the exit of this next corner? Do I suffer later on in the laps so I can get the position now? We can definitely see that Eric Thorpe has gone for that latter option, and ever so slightly on Antoine Blancas. We'll see what the difference is between the tyres into this braking zone. Unless this GTE has something to do with it. Oh no, Blancas! He's gone off. He's actually managed to stay in front, but that slowdown will absolutely ruin him.
It's going to replay something else that's happened as well, as we'll see a change of position, there's no doubt about that. So Eric Thorpe is about to go through, but let's watch here. Riley Curtis has had an incident here. Oh
my goodness. That was almost a fantastic save. This is another replay of the issue that happened between these two LMP1s. Maybe the GTE was caught sleeping slightly.
I think you're right. I think it wasn't expecting those guys to close up as quick as they did. They did come from a long way back, but they had so much pace. They'd used so much boost to battle each other as hard as they did. And have a look, Gabriel Roux now getting in on this too. So here we see again a 3-car battle for 2 spots on the podium.
Yeah, and Antoine, you can tell he's a bit rattled from just happened. So Gabriel Roux behind him, starting to close up quite a bit. We should expect Blancas in the pits, probably at the end of this one.
Well, he's actually just come out of the pits. So,
oh, has he?
Yeah, so he hasn't taken tyres in either of his stops from what I can see on the timing screen. Whereas everyone else has taken tyres in that most recent stop.
Okay.
So he's triple stinting tyres. So he's looking like at this rate he'll go the whole race on one set of tyres.
Bold move.
Bold, but unlikely. I mean, the tyre wear is pretty extreme in these cars. Double stinting tyres is usually a tough ask at Le Mans. But triple stinting, really tough ask. We're going to go back to the LMP2 class, the HPDs, because Folby versus Burns is getting very, very tight and close. That Riley Curtis just go past them again in his little recovery after that whoopsie. These two have got very, very tight and very close.
Yep, back together once again, battling for the podium positions. I will point out, though, with respect to Antoine Blancas, he may be counting on the track temperature lowering enough as the sun sets that ultimately tyre wear isn't going to matter as much. As night falls at Le Mans, you'd be surprised at the amount you can stretch these tyres.
Well, it has dropped about 3 degrees Celsius since we started the race. Of course, we started at 8 p.m. In sim time, so now at 20 past 9, the temperature has dropped about 3 degrees, currently 19.4 degrees on track. Actually perfect conditions to race at the moment. Not much wind, the track is nice and cool, the humidity is fairly low. It'd be very, very enjoyable conditions to race, but you wouldn't want to be in too big of a fight, as Gabriel Ruse has actually just gone through.
It looks like fairly decisive there on Antoine Blancas. Meanwhile, these two, De Folby's had a better run through the Indianapolis and Arnage complexes. Burns starting to drop off.
Ruse has just lost the spot again.
Oh. Well, he'll have to psych himself up to do it all over again. Have a look at how hard he's pushing, coming in. Those front tyres won't be enjoying that.
No, not at all. He'll be struggling for front end grip if he keeps pushing it too hard as well. So, gotta be careful. Gotta conserve the tyres a little bit. Do you want them to last the length of the stint, or especially if you're double stinting? So if you push them too hard too early, you've got nothing left for so many laps. And look at how deep he is. It's incredibly deep, but he's managing to pull it up and driving very, very well. Is the fastest car out on track at the moment too, is Gabriel Ruse. Last lap by a 3:16.6. That was his fastest lap of the race. And have a look at that, straight up into third. But last lap by was his fastest lap of the race. One of the fastest laps in the entire race. Second fastest lap of the race.
That's some really good pace there from Roos. And if it weren't for Neck making his big charge early on, we might have seen a closer battle throughout the early stages. Goodness me.
That was Jason Martin there, just had a little bit of a moment right in front of those guys, and they would have had a minor little heart attack there. Now they're coming past Dane Burns. No, that's not Dane Burns. It's one of the other sister cars. Not sure who that was.
It's definitely an awkward place to be making your way through traffic. See that GTE on the exit. Of course, the GTs, they do have to run their own race, but the LMP1s and LMP2s have to be mindful that they are more grip limited.
And you can tell the drivers that have done a lot of multi-class racing as well. You can see the drivers that know how to do it. And sometimes, to understand how to race in the top class and be able to pass, you sometimes have to just go and race in the lower classes in these sort of races and have an understanding of how those cars behave. Because guys that only race the LMP1 or the HPDs will just see a car go straight ahead. Actually seeing another car stopped.
Oh,
it's
no.
Rory Boyd. Strange spot to be stopped.
Yeah, certainly is, but you'll be able to get it back going nicely.
He's done this one all by his own, but understanding how each car can behave, and the guys that only race one class of car often struggle a little bit more. Oh, got helped in the end there. So
ouch.
That was a little
All
bit
started
more
by clobbering the curb too hard, though.
Yeah. Understanding how all the classes behave and how the different cars behave is such an important part of racing in these sort of races. If you don't have an understanding how the GTEs actually behave and drive, it's harder to pass a GTE if you're in an LMP1 or an LMP2 car. If you actually drive all of the different cars, you have a much better understanding and you can plan your moves to get through traffic a lot better.
You absolutely can, and it also teaches you the importance of realizing that you don't always have to pass under brake.
Yep.
Because these, the LMP1s especially, they've got incredible acceleration from the hybrid system and the four-wheel drive, so if you're in an LMP1 car and you're coming up on a GTE, it's almost always the best option to wait behind them and pass them on exit instead of going for a dive bomb and potentially making contact with them.
Definitely right, and planning those moves at the right time is so important, as we're just seeing our leaders in the HPD class coming in. Chris Purnell, 20-second lead he had in the end of that stint over Victor Folby, and Dane Burns follows him straight in, so 12 laps to a stint for these guys. Well, this stint anyway. The stint previous was 14 laps.
And Chris Purnell's been absolutely untouchable in this race.
We've hardly talked about him. How often do we say when we hardly talk about someone that they're having an incredible run?
That's exactly right. And what happened to Jonathan Ben here on the exit of the S's? It's another easy place to spin the car. He was just a little bit wide, tried to get it back online, but those marbles had other ideas. Boop.
Just hit the wall. Only just, but tough to get around too. He tried not to hinder any traffic. So just seeing Gabriel Roos and Eric Thorpe were really close on the timing sheets, but Roos has dropped off. I'm thinking he's run out of hybrid boost potentially, because he was down to about 0.5 of a second. Now it's back out to 2 seconds. Just seeing two. That's Hayden Benefield facing the wrong way at a strange spot as well.
Oh. That's at Mulsanne corner. So he would have had a couple cars barreling in there after him. Let's have a look at what went on there. From the chopper cam, you can see the national highway that forms the Uno Diez Strait. And it looks like, once again, the rear end of that car is not working well with him. So he's got it spun around, but, oh, don't know if that was the best way to recover it, especially with those cars coming up on him.
No, he needed to think a bit more about how to do that. Didn't quite work as he wanted it to, and seeing now we also got another pit stop in our... It's actually an unscheduled stop, I think, here for Dennis Chow.
Yeah. You wouldn't expect LMP1s, let alone the Porsches, in at this kind of time. Meanwhile, Roos and Thorpe closer than ever.
Had got it out to 2 seconds, as we said, and it was within one replay, we're back down to half a second again. So I think it was all hybrid boost that he'd used up, and now regen the battery a little bit and back at it again.
That's it, and it's not just about regen. It's also about your maximum allowed boost for the lap. Because not only do you have to recharge the system, you've also got to monitor how much of your 8 megajoules you have left to use.
Yeah, exactly right. And as soon as you cross the line, it resets and can go again. So there's every chance that he'd used it all that he was allowed to use, and got a full allowance again when he crossed the line. Back into it. The pace looks really good though. Gabriel Roos, still the fastest car out on track. Last lap by 17.2. So still going very, very quick. Even though he's dicing through traffic and manoeuvring himself through very, very well, he's still got some really good pace. It's great to watch. He's driving that car very, very well. And as you said before, if it wasn't for Blake Neck's early, intensive drive to get a huge gap while he could be a totally different race. We've seen a little battle here coming out of the pits.
Whoa. Skurlock and Folby. 3rd and 4th in LMP2 side by side down the run up to Indianapolis. Looks to me like Folby just has him here. The Illusion Motorsport driver has to yield there briefly. So 3rd and 4th, it seems to be the battle for either the top 3 or the top 5. That's really where it's at in these classes.
Yeah, exactly right. It's all about those top few positions. So, will be interesting to see how the remainder of this little race or this little battle plays out. We've got battles for second and third in LMP1. We've got battles for second and third in the LMP2, the HPD class, and we've got battles for first and second in GTE. So GTE battle is actually down to under 1.5 seconds. So Cam Dance will be in draft now as well. So it's going to be interesting in the next little while. There goes Morton. There goes Dance. They're very close now.
Yeah, I'm impressed that they've, even through all the dramas, still managed to maintain line of sight to each other. It's difficult to do in a race where you've got almost a full field of cars, and the other class is actually very well populated.
Full field of 56 cars out on track. Originally, 66 drivers had qualified for tonight's race, but admin's decided, which is why we're a little bit late starting, a little bit late getting the green flags, decided to combine the classes so that we'd get, or combine the fields, so that we'd have one big race. I think overall the show has been better for it. Everyone's had a much better opportunity to have someone to race against.
Yes, indeed. And that's an unconventional line that Ramon Regalado has taken. And an LMP1 making his way through as well, Riley Curtis. Oh no, Curtis!
Whoa!
And Philip Morton flashing his headlights, obviously very frustrated with that kind of move. Oh goodness! Careful, 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 guys! Oh dear. This is where the fatigue and all of that sets in. You come up on an awkward situation and you don't always make the best decision.
Sometimes these guys just want to try and get past, but it's not always the best way to just go through like that. Oh my goodness. And they've all made it through at the moment somehow.
Reminder.
But somehow,
Reminder.
touch wood, they will make it through.
Reminder, those two GTE cars are the top two in class. So these prototypes scything their way through, so much has the potential to go wrong at every moment.
And the guys that are going through a 9th, 10th, 11th, 14th or so in class, so they haven't got much to fight for. They're cutting their way through the leaders in this class and are not doing it in ways that were too favourable towards those GTEs. Those guys would be so nervous in those cars right now.
Absolutely, but miracle of miracles, they've managed to maintain almost the same gap as they were this time last lap.
One thing I've noticed is Dance has decided to back off a little bit and just let Philip Morton go through and clear a little bit. Make sure that there's a bit of a gap there so that they don't come together.
Sit back, let things play out for a bit, and then get back into it when you're clear.
Yep. Which is almost now.
Yes, indeed. And floodlights are starting to come on around the circuit as the sun dips below the horizon. We are truly entering the evening phase now.
One cool little thing I noticed before is they're coming out of the under the Dunlop Bridge. You can actually see the Audi dealership there. The lights on the side of the Audi logo look absolutely beautiful.
I love all the little details that get put into circuits like this. Stuff that you wouldn't expect them to feature. And that's second and third in LMP1 once again.
And I had the wrong camera, so we couldn't see it. I'm sorry, Rex.
No. All good. Could still see them.
Good. This is a good little fight here, and Thorpe's going to have to work really hard to hold on to this position, you'd feel. Last lap by Gabriel Roos, 16.3. His fastest lap of the race.
That's some pretty blazing pace, and it looks like he's going to translate that into a move. Yeah, he's by well before the chicane. So there we go, position swapped once again. We've seen so many position swaps over the course of this one.
Interesting to go through post-race and see how many actual positional changes there were overall in the race. I know I don't have enough fingers to be able to count that high to work it out, but there would be so many, not just lead changes, but positional changes has been huge. And just looking at the timing sheets, lots and lots of green numbers on positional changes. I can see some drivers up 10, 12. Mark Dials up 15 positions from where he started the race. outright. So started in 51st outright, currently in 36th outright. So big positional changes, which is awesome to see. So Dance has got a bit of a run here, but won't take advantage of it yet.
Not yet. 40 minutes to go, just about, so time's starting to run out. Morton using the gravel once again. And as has happened a few times before, there goes Blake Nick zooming by. He's having a very comfortable race up at the front as our LMP1 leader.
He hasn't had too much to do, has he? Just maneuver himself through traffic safely. And he's doing everything he has to do in this race, or needs to do. Is just seeing another incident here for Benefield.
And that's coming up towards the end of the lap, I think. So through the forward chicanes. It's another LMP2 going into the pits and clobbers the curb.
Whoa!
Oh, it snapped on him.
And that wasn't the direction I was expecting him to go either.
Yeah, me either. Good thing he had a big gap to get that thing recovered. Meanwhile, GTE lead still on. Really on now. Taft Baldwin hits in LMP2 as well as these guys go by. Will Dance pressure Morton a little bit more. He's having a red-hot go of it. They just got to be careful of A, the slowdowns, B, how the curbs and the track can turn on you.
It's amazing, this circuit, how it's evolved over the race, isn't it? The track conditions have changed so much. The track's got even cooler again. It's now down to flat 19 degrees Celsius, so it's really getting cool out there, which, as you said before, it really changes how much grip there is. Just seeing two Hayden Benefields decided to park the car, so he decided he's had enough. It's been a tough old outing for him. Big learning experience, but here comes Dance. Not quite close enough. This is going to be a great battle for the next 30 minutes.
Absolutely. We've been seeing it simmering since the very start of this race, and now it is really going to heat up as the track and the air starts cooling down a bit more. Dance with an actually very good run. He's got the confidence. And I think Morton lifted off just slightly there as well. Didn't want to make it too difficult for either of them. Oh, Dance didn't ride the curbs too well. Neither did Morton, for that matter.
That's Gabriel Ruse coming through as well. Have a look at the gap that he's already pulled on Eric Thorpe.
Man.
It's 3 seconds between those two now.
Quite the gap indeed, and here goes Thorpe. And if you want to pass anyone at Mulsanne, that's where you do it. A little bit of traffic in the form of Phil Otto just up ahead of these guys. Phil Otto, he is in 41st overall and 10th in class. So that's the kind of numbers that we're dealing with here. That's where everybody's at.
Seen Mark Dial jump into the pits, so he's the first of our GTEs to come in for his second pit stop, which means that these guys here could come in to make that final splash of fuel at any time from now. You probably think they'll go 1, maybe 2 more laps and then come in, give themselves half an hour left. But you never know how it could play out. They could decide to come in now. One thing is for sure, they'll both come in together.
Yeah, if one goes for it, the other does too. Oh, that's Martin? No, Colin Herman. That's an interesting place to be at a standstill. Looks like he did it on his own.
Strange incident there for the DPR Racing entry.
just a little bit too wide. There were a few marbles out there. This is one of the highest load corners on the circuit, so if you're a little bit offline as he was, there's absolutely no grip out there.
Yep. Almost a mirror incident, and as we said, when we see one come into the pits, we'll see two.
Oh, there we go.
Right on cue. It's almost like we predicted that.
We're absolutely fantastic at that, aren't we?
What, guessing?
Yeah.
Jonathan Ben and James Robbie going at it. I've been guessing for years and I've somehow made it look like I'm an expert, but I'm clearly not. You know me personally, Reece. You know that I'm very, very far from an expert, but James Robbie has had a bit of a race to forget. He's battling at the moment with Jonathan Ben. Two guys that probably want to have this race over, you'd think. They haven't had too much success in this one. But going at it, positive thing is they're actually racing each other. Having someone to race sometimes just as important as having a good race. So Ben has a little bit of a mistake there, and he'll leave that his Dane Burns through. Dane Burns now has a 12-second advantage over Victor Folby. So it's a long way ahead now. Folby's just coming across the start line now. So that's a battle in the HPDs. Looks like it's pretty much all over.
Who knows? There might be an incident for one of those guys up at the front and they can come back together. We've seen stranger things happen before.
Morton had a long pit stop time. Sorry, not pit stop time. Pit lane transit time. His transit time was 1.7 seconds longer than Cameron Dance, and that's lost him a huge advantage to Dance, who you can just see off in the distance there. See the two HPDs go side by side. That is not for position. Those guys are a lap apart. 3.1 seconds now, the advantage in favour of Cameron Dance. This is going to be huge for his championship. Decent amount of points in comparison first to second in class. So Dance will be much preferring to get a class win than a class second for the championship fight against Jason Martin, who has not had the best run tonight, currently in 9th.
Yeah, and he's a long way back as well. Just coming through the Porsche curves now, so this will be a race to forget for Jason Martin, but as long as he gets there to the finish and gets points on the table, it's still something he can recover from in the final half of the season as he goes into the pits.
You can see there too, the gap was on screen there. So just seeing another car stop. Rory Boyd. That's a huge amount of damage. Look at the rear wing there.
Yeah, for sure. That's at Tete Rouge too, so happening in the first half of the lap. Making his way past an LMP2 over the curb onto the grass. Did they make contact? He was out on the exit. Oh, he just caught the grass on the exit. Four-wheel drive, unfortunately, doesn't help you there.
It's not like those fun four-wheel drives to drive, is it? It's
no.
Not the four-wheel drive that you want to use off-road.
Yeah, it's very much an on-road four-wheel drive. And even then, only for a couple seconds. Oh.
Expensive crash. Always hurts to see these cars hit the wall.
Yeah, not least because they're so sensitive to the damage. If you clip a wall in the wrong way, so much as clip it, you can have something awful happen to your aerodynamics and the entire balance of your car is thrown off. So Northway and Otto both in the pits here.
Yep. Also Eric Thorpe has come out. Gabriel Ruse has come out, so they've both been in, made their stops. So they'll continue on in their fight for podium positions in that class. Whoa!
Whoa! Okay, Gavin Barber,
who's just come out of the pits as well.
Tell you what, if sim racing had been invented 70 years earlier, he wouldn't have had that gravel trap.
If laser scanning technology was around 70 years earlier.
Just getting...
Another case of tyres not up to temp, I think.
And also just taking a little bit too much of that inside curb, because that curb's actually quite bumpy. It can unsettle the car if you hit it wrong. Take too much of it.
Got Roy Clark closing in on Patolo. Slowly closing in. Gap down to 0.7 of a second. These guys fighting for the last spot in the top 10. Tello yet to come in and make his final pit stop though, so probably will have to come in the end of this lap or the end of the next one.
Yeah, Roy Clark chasing down Mr. Patullo. He's had quite the race, has he? As have a lot of our LMP2 field, actually. Northway and Cho, meanwhile.
So much of a fight there.
And a little bit of extra draft from an LMP2 for good measure.
It's almost enough for Northway to come back through there because he ended up with the double draft coming back. Wasn't quite able to do it, but this is going to continue for a little bit longer. Also seeing Eric Thorpe and Gabriel Ruse have closed that gap back down once again. I'll say a big thank you to everyone that is tuning in here to the majors for the first time. Great to see how many of you tuning in tonight for the first time here with us here at SimSpeed. It's been a very, very entertaining race, and the next race in 2 weeks' time, Reece, I think that's the one that I was looking forward to on the calendar. I know you're looking forward to another one coming up in a few more weeks, but the next one is going to be incredible as we head to Belle Isle in 2 weeks' time for the Indy Grand Prix of Detroit. I'm looking forward to that one.
For sure. It's like it's the Midwest's Monaco. You wouldn't call it the United States Monaco because I think Long Beach kind of has that title, but if you're in the area around Detroit, then Belle Isle is one of the toughest and meanest street circuits around, and we're going to see a bunch of Indy cars driving around that. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be great fun. That'll be in 2 weeks' time here on the iRacing Esports Network, and if you've enjoyed this race, there's 2 more of these to come. Of course, this is the international region. Of course, the Americas and European regions coming up tomorrow as well, and later on tonight on the iRacing Esports Network as well, the next round of the Porsche Esports Super Cup. Josh Rogers leading that championship. Very good friend of us here at SimSpeed TV.
Yeah, we've had him on our broadcasts many, many times, and the vast majority of those times he's been at the front, so that should tell you something about his talent.
Yeah, 100%. He's a fantastic driver and a very, very nice young guy, so he's at the moment absolutely showing the world how it's done. So fingers crossed for his sake, he can have another great result. And of course, Jared Filsell as well, doing a very, very good job. It's a big weekend here on SimSpeed TV with V8 Scops coming up tomorrow as well. We head to Mosport, one of our favourite tracks on the V8 Scops calendar. Race, so looking forward to that one.
Absolutely, it's one of the best racetracks on the service, full stop, in my opinion. But it's particularly special seeing a bunch of Australian touring cars, 650 horsepower V8s, pounding their way around that place.
Yep, we'll be live from 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, and later on tonight, after we finish this, we're going to have a little bit of fun and unwind a little bit, aren't we, Reece? So we've got Max Bantz coming up in around about 45 minutes' time over on our channel at SimSpeed.
Yes, indeed.
A little bit of a relaxing night to end the night off.
Yeah, of course, everyone takes things a bit seriously in the majors. You have to. These guys are competing for the Mario Andretti Trophy, which celebrates versatility, because that's really what this championship is about, versatility. These drivers race different car track combinations every single round, and they're always very grueling rounds. But then we'll have a bunch of drivers competing for the WinRAR Trophy in Max Bantz, around Talladega and the Skip Barbers.
Just seeing some photos being sent from the practice session too. We're seeing 7 wide skippies at Talladega.
Oh dear.
No, I'm not joking. I've seen that. Well, actually, that's 8 wide.
Oh no. Oh no.
So that's coming up in around about 45 minutes over on our channel, SimSpeed. You can search for a SimSpeed TV. And or type in Max Bantz into the search and you will find it there. That's Max with 2 X's and Bantz with a Z. And just a nice friendly unwind on a Saturday night for us. After 13 weeks of serious racing, it's our chance to have a little bit of a fun before we get back into the next 13 weeks of serious racing.
Yeah, or engage in our inner sadists. Either way you look at it, it's going to be a fun night.
Seeing more pit stops as we expected. Seeing a few cars come in the HPD field. Vitalo, Regalado, both in the pits. Morton and Dance. That gap is stretched. Have a look at the gap now. It is out to 4.9 seconds. Morton seems like he's struggling a little bit.
Yeah, definitely
Is he down
seems
on
that
power?
way. Well, let's have a look at what his straight line speed is like, because he's coming up on the run down to Indianapolis. Cameron Dance reaching a VMAX down here of about 288 kilometers an hour. Meanwhile, Morton, 285.
Interesting. The gap staying around about 5 seconds, so Morton might need a little bit of help from some traffic. And of course, the cooler conditions will probably help the Porsche a little bit too. The track cooling down will probably play into the favour, the strengths of the Porsche over the Ferrari.
Yeah, exactly. You remember the Ferrari has got a turbo. The Porsche is naturally aspirated, so power delivery is a little bit smoother. You do have to keep the revs a bit higher. And of course, the Porsche, this generation of the 911 RSR, it made news because Porsche decided to make it mid-engined as opposed to the engine hanging out over the rear axle like previous 911s. But there's still a bit more rearward weight bias in the Porsche than there is in the other cars.
It's going to get another replay because there's another incident that has happened out on the circuit. We'll see if we can pick it up. Something's happened to Colin Herman. It was already damaged on that car before this point, so we might have to rewind a little bit further to see if we can pick it up. And here it comes.
This would have been something that happened at Indianapolis, a bit of loss of control. As the track gets darker, it's easier to make these mistakes.
Whoa.
And Herman, he turned right, and the car just kept turning right.
This was no grip under the car at the end of that kink, was it? Just wanted to keep turning, so unfortunate there. As you just see, Blakeneck has come in to make his final stop.
Blancas may very well follow him in here. Yes, he will. But will he take tyres? Probably not, because we haven't seen him take tyres so far.
Done a pretty good job to maintain the pace that he's got at the moment. Gabriel Roux's third position. Will we see him jump? Blancas, Blakeneck's already out of the pits, so have a look at the gap that he's got. It's what, 70 seconds, I'm going to say? 65 seconds? We'll find out at the line.
Something like that. Only a 15.6 second stop for Neck. So that final pit stop, just splash and dash and away you go. Roos staying out.
So he's already fueled up, ready to get it home. He's on his about to start his third lap. So he's coming in the pits, so we'll get a gap to leader in just a moment. He's going to come past Blancas because he's just coming out of the pits now. And 1 minute is the gap to the leader. No, 37 seconds it's come down to now. So it's a little bit less than I was expecting, but still a substantial lead. Blakeneck well and truly in control.
Yeah, and I think a 37, 38 second gap is going to be very hard to make up in 21.5 minutes. So that may very well be the way things stay. Blancas has gone back to 4th in class. His stop was 8 tenths slower than Blakeneck's, which is Interesting.
Love this shot looking over the shoulder of Blancas. You can see in the rear vision camera the lights, and you can see him slowly closing up on Eric Thorpe. Wasn't quite able to gain as much advantage as I would have thought, but he's done a really good job, and great to see that in our top 4 we've got 2 Audis and 2 Porsches. It's very, very good to see a mix at the front of the field in our GTE class, our other mixed class. Porsche, Ferrari, Ferrari, Porsche, Ferrari, BMW. So not a bad mix. We've got a bit of everything there. Unfortunately, no Fords out on track in this one. There was one in practice I saw earlier, but maybe racing in one of the other divisions of the Majors series.
There's no close battles out on track at the moment. The field is as spread out as it's always been. So Blake Neck, Gabriel Roos and Eric Thorpe, your top 3 in LMP1. Chris Purnell leads LMP2 with Dwayne Burns and Victor Folby in 2nd and 3rd. And your top 3 in GTE remain Cameron Dance, Philip Morton and Jimmy Ball.
Whoops.
Oh,
James Robbie.
That is a problem at Tete Rouge. Let's have a look at what happened here. Of course, getting much darker now. It's amazing how quickly it gets dark once the sun goes down. Robbie. It looks like he didn't have a problem on... Oh, there we go. Did what Hayden Benefield did earlier on in the race, but jumped on the brakes to try and keep it straightened up.
This fight here is getting a little bit closer. Actually, a little surprised at how close it's getting.
Yeah, Eric Thorpe really charging right now. There was a 9/10 of a second difference between these guys on the previous lap. We'll see what the times are like now when they come across the line next. It's incredible the speed at which they take these chicanes. Got to slow all the way down for the last chicane here. A 3:18.6 for Roos and a 3:17.6 for Thorpe. So battle for 3rd, definitely not over.
No, not at all. And fastest car is Dennis Cho. So it's lapping fastest in this class at the moment. And Eric Thorpe just getting a little bit of traffic at the wrong spot there because he was closing that gap down very, very smartly. I believe that's Dave Douglas just ahead of him there. He'll use that draft advantage and might be able to help him close that gap down from he and Gabriel Roos. You think Roos will be absolutely pushing that boost button as hard as he can.
Yeah, well, he's over 330 Ks on the run up to Mulsanne 1, reaching 336 just before the entry. That's one of the places where the boost is most effective, because you can't really use a ton of boost out of every one of these acceleration zones.
They have
be
to
mindful about where you deploy it.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. You need to think and strategize and use it smartly. You don't have enough to be able to just use as much as you want. I mean, you can use as much as you want, but you're not going to have anything left for the second half of the lap. So you really have to play it smart, and Thorpe's used it very, very smartly because he used it all in that second section. Now down to 1.2 second advantage.
So definitely not over for second place overall and an LMP1. These are the closest 2 cars for position on track as they make their way through more GTE traffic. That was Jason Harmsworth, your 4th place GTE car. These guys just made their way past. And the closing speed.
Incredible.
The amount of speed that they carry into Indianapolis. Oh, that's not going to help matters.
Yeah, Gabriel Roos just got compromised a little bit there from that BMW.
There was Stephen Williams at the wheel of that GTE. Of course, it's an awkward situation to be in.
Well, I mean, BMW being that big, it was hard to get past them anyway at the best of time.
Yeah. I mean, he tried his best to get off the road, did Stephen, but obviously 20% of the tarmac still taken up by the large boy. Making their way through traffic and the Porsche curves as well. Oh, that's risky. But he managed to get it done.
And just avoided getting a slowdown penalty as well as he ran a little wide. It's a gap now under a second. This is going to be the closest these guys have been when they cross the start line in a little while. 15 minutes to go, which means that we've got around about 4, maybe 5 laps of racing, thinking, of course, that Blake Neck is a little bit further up the road. So we'll see how this plays out. That lap by 2/10 advantage in the favour of Thorpe. Both got compromised with traffic based on their lap times. We'll see if Thorpe can close it in. He's just made a little mistake, though.
Yeah, he has. It's not going to help him much at all, but he still has some time. They still have, in the LMP1s, this would be 5 laps remaining, maybe 6.
Yeah, predictions saying that we're going to do 44 laps of racing, so just seen Blake Neck has now officially the fastest car out on track, so just noticed a few other times have come in. So Blake Neck's pace has definitely come back up again. Last lap by an 18.3. Race pace has dropped off in the LMP1s. The race pace is nowhere near as quick as it was earlier. So it's interesting to see that it's dropped off as much as it has in the last little while.
Yeah, it's a combination, I think, of getting used to the cars, consolidating positions and encounters with traffic. They all come together to bring the average lap time of these things way down. Gabriel Roos has done a good job making his way through the traffic so far. But Thorpe has not been able to do much versus him.
Got another incident out on the circuit, unfortunately.
16th place in LMP2, Mr. Regalado. What happened to him here? Did he understeer into the wall?
Whoa!
Oh, no, bit of
Whoa!
oversteer. Oh my goodness.
That'll
Just
do
a
it.
little snap at the worst time. That's a big shame.
Now I understand why his name was disappeared off the timing sheet so quickly.
Yeah, I mean, if you were in that position, you'd want to hit the escape button as quickly as possible.
It's the saving grace of sim racing, isn't it? The seeing incidents like that and knowing that people can walk away.
Yeah. Oh, very close between these two now with some Ferrari of Gavin Barber making things difficult for Thorpe and Roos.
Definitely helped Eric Thorpe, though. He's got to get past. He's a very, very good mate there in Philip Morton.
No.
Oh, just holds on.
Roos almost had a bit of a whoopsie as well. Took a bit too much inside turf. Oh, I mean, I know it's a long race, but goodness, hold it together just a little bit longer.
This has been a stressful one, hasn't it? Because it just hasn't stopped. The intensity has been so high from the drop of the green flag all the way through this race.
Yeah, it combines the sprint and endurance aspects of Le Mans very well. That's Cameron Dance that they're just making their way by there. Meanwhile, another problem for a GTE.
Yeah, Matt Hunter back in the field. I actually think he might have just gone straight ahead here. Showing a little bit better how to take note. Thought he was going to go through the chicane a little bit better, but he had to slow up a little bit too much there. Moththorpe, as you said, had that little bit of an issue. Blankers has come back.
Yeah, certainly has. Have a look at him making his way through there onto the Hunaudière You can see the light beams of Thorpe right up ahead.
Oh no, something's happened to Philip Morton.
Oh, what? Morton?
Philip Morton has had an issue. He's going again, but he's just lost about 12 seconds.
Caught the grass on the entry to Tete Rouge. Look at this. Just a little half a tyre width was all it took, and round he went. Tried to recover it, overcorrected, and wow, contact too.
Not sure who that was that made contact with him there either.
I will double check. It was Brad Fenley. Unfortunate for him. Looks like he managed to get away with it though, but my goodness, Morton, any chance that he would have had of winning this thing is now well and truly gone. This is the view from the LMP2. You could almost see it happening in slow motion, and he wasn't expecting him to go the other way.
He sort of had to second guess which way he needed to go there, did Fenley, but as you said, he's probably going to get away with it. A little bit of damage to the front, but I don't think it'll be too bad.
I'm barely seeing any damage at all on his car.
You can see from the onboard here is a tiny little bit of damage on that front wing, but it's not enough to probably worry him at all. I mean, it's night time. You're not going to see the damage anyway, so it doesn't matter, does it?
Yeah, true. You can't see it. It's not real.
I tell you what's getting really tight is that we're now under 10 minutes to go. Jimmy Ball is going to have to start to pick up the pace a little bit here because Jason Harmsworth, last time I looked, he was around about 10 seconds back. He's now down to 3.7 and closing.
Interesting. And Jimmy Ball's last lap time didn't register, so he must have gotten a slowdown.
He must have had a cut track penalty or something, and Harmsworth last lap by was the fastest car on track in GTE, so this isn't over here in
Coming
GTE.
back strong is Jason Harmsworth.
Yep. And Marco Dutnak and Brad Findlay going at it as well, so Findlay probably down on pace a tiny little bit. Won't be a huge amount, but it'll be enough to help Dutnak close in, although he's off in the marbles, just holds on to coming past. I believe that's Cameron Dance.
Oh, goodness me. It's so stressful watching cars go through there and go wide. I'm really sorry. I have such a visceral reaction to all of that stuff.
Oh, he's just clipped the curb and almost looped it. Whew.
Okay. Now it's time for heartbeats to go down and to start again.
Just for now, though.
Cross the start-finish line, reset.
We'll go back to this battle between Jimmy Ball and Jason Harmsworth. Those battles in LMP1 look like they're all over. They're slowly stretching out a little bit. Thorpe now at 3.1 seconds back. Blanca's 2.1 seconds back, but last lap by was a little slower than Thorpe. But Jason Harmsworth is closing in at a fairly rapid rate here. This is on for the final spot on the podium in GTE.
Looking forward to this one because we'll be able to see what kind of lap time is representative for Jimmy Ball at this stage in the race. Off into the gravel just slightly, and looks like that lap time didn't register either. So he's still getting slowdowns every so often, I believe.
Yeah, so he's obviously pushing really hard to try and get his laps in or try and get around the circuit. My timing's showing a 3 minute 51.8 versus a 49.1, so that's 2.7 seconds in the favour of Harmsworth on that last lap.
Well, look out for Jason Harmsworth in these last couple of laps.
Just lost a bit of ground there, had a big moment. Now,
to contend.
Sorry, Rex, I was just going to say he's just out of draft range, so he's going to lose a little bit of ground, and Jimmy Ball probably is going to gain a bit of draft in the next section. So going to hurt Harmsworth a little bit here.
Yeah, not much time left for these guys. For the GTEs, it'll probably be 3 laps. 2 laps, rather.
Oh!
After this one. As we
car.
take a look at...
Chris Purnell, who's in the pits.
Oh!
So he's had to come in and make a late pit stop. So he's actually given up the lead of that class to Dane Burns.
Okay.
Right, so this is on. And I also was hearing a car struggling to engage gears down at Indianapolis. I think it was Bradley Matheson. No, it wasn't. It might have been... There we go. There's the car that I was hearing.
Matt Hunter, more issues for him.
He's having issues engaging gear.
Must be a hardware thing for him.
Yeah. Watch here, he loops it around. And the car's just stopped there. He just can't engage gear because it's just revving.
Oh, you know what? The rear tyres might be off the ground. He's right up against the wall.
I reckon you're right.
So the bottom of the edge of the rear wing is hooked on top of the Armco, and it's lifted the rear tyres off the ground. Oh, that's frustrating.
That's disappointing for him. So not the way you want to end the race. But Chris Purnell, this is a huge talking point. He's had to come in and make a third stop. Dane Burns probably has saved fuel. 6 minutes to go on the clock when he's come in. Purnell, he's given up the lead and now 9.2 seconds back.
And how are you going to make up 9.2 seconds and only a couple of laps that these guys have left?
Well, you're going to have to hope that Dane Burns, as Gabriel Roos has had an incident.
Oh no! And there's another car off there at the SS2.
Yeah, that was a...
That's an HPD.
Yeah.
So, oh my goodness, it's all gone off in the last couple minutes.
Was that Victor Folby, the other car involved there, who'd just come out of the pits?
That is Folby. He's gone. He went wide. Oh, miscommunication.
Yep.
Miscommunication. Roos thought that he had been given the inside of the corner and turned in.
Yep. And now Folby lost the spot there to Alex Court. Now he's going to try and hunt down Court. We thought that this race was settling down and was almost over. Well, it's far from. So we've got about 2 laps of racing to go. Not much left in this one. It is on for podium positions in the top 2 classes at the moment, with the potential for a final spot on the podium closing in GTE.
Evidently, when night falls, things heat up. I just took a look at Chris Purnell's stop as Folby goes back by here. Purnell's stop had nothing untoward about it. It looked fairly normal, just a case of stopping for a few seconds for some extra fuel.
Yeah, I had heard that there was a potential that the HPDs would have to come in and get about 3 laps worth of fuel. So if Dane Burns has saved 3 laps of fuel, which there is a chance based on his pace that he has saved enough fuel, then he might be okay to bring it home. He has lost 1.5 seconds in this stint. But Alex Court coming back on Victor Folby, not quite close enough. Blankers, I must say, he's a driver that's caught us off guard completely. He is now right on the tail of Gabriel Roos to try and come through. Roos possibly a little bit of damage from that incident as well.
Yeah, you'd have to think there'd be at least some damage when you make rear quarter contact with the very sharp front of an LMP2 car. That's going to do some damage.
Dane Burns in the pits, so that's all over.
Oh, there we go.
Yep. So Purnell
So
will
are we
regain
going
the
to
lead.
see? Are we going to see all of the other LMP2s come in here and there be a mad shuffle in the last couple of laps?
Possibly, there is every chance. Alex Court might be happy to be tucked in behind Victor Folby here because then he can save a bit of fuel. So it'll be interesting to see in the next little bit. We don't have exact fuel numbers. We're not provided fuel information on the cars, so we don't know exactly. Oh, jeez, that's close there. They're coming past, I believe, I don't even know who that was. That was just crazy.
That was one of the misfits.
Yeah. So will we see Court come in to get fuel? 2 minutes left on the clock. So I believe they're going to get the white flag this time by. And Court's going to have to come in and get fuel. So Blake Neck is coming through the first Mulsanne chicane. So this is the last lap of the race. This is the white flag.
Well, we haven't, once again, it's happened a couple times before with Blake Neck. He's just come out and done this incredible performance, and we've barely paid any attention to him at all because the other battling on track has been so compelling. It's
been incredible. That first 3 laps, he just absolutely blitzed away. We went back to watch the starts of the other two classes, and by the time we came back, he already had a 3-second advantage. So he's done a great job just getting huge chunks of time. As see Daniel Stevens having a bit of a whoopsie. He's a driver that's going to do double stint tonight. He's going to jump in and do max bands because he said he needs a little bit of a relaxation after this one.
Yeah, certainly. You're gonna have to get a bit of downtime after completing any race at Le Mans, no matter how long. It's a brutal track, and brutal cars are often raced around it.
So Blakeneck just comes past another car. Just about to come up through Indianapolis for the final time, for the 43rd time in this race. It's been a dominant drive, led almost every lap. The only laps he didn't lead were the ones after he'd come in and made the pit stop. But even then, I don't think he was not in the lead for very long.
Pretty much flawless in terms of traffic management too. We haven't seen Blake come together once with another car on this broadcast. He's just been out in the lead, doing his thing, making sure that he passes people cleanly.
Yep, it's been a very, very good drive, very smooth. Very consistent drive from Blakeneck, and he'll come around, and looks like it will be the almost perfect performance to pick up the win in this one. He's done a very, very good job.
He certainly has. He's only got 4 more corners to go here, but they're going to be some of the best 4 corners he's ever driven. Blakeneck is going to put his name in the Majors record books and win the International Division. 2.4 hours of Le Mans. Fantastic drive for the overall win.
Big well done there to Blakeneck, as Chris Purnell's about to come around and complete his race as well. Another driver that's just been absolutely dominant. We were a bit worried there at the end, but he's managed the fuel quite well. Dane Burns wasn't quite able to get him on fuel numbers, and Purnell crosses the line and picks up the win in the LMP2 class. Cameron Dance now has a fairly substantial lead. It's just seeing another car have an incident on the final lap of the race. What's happened to Burnow?
Jamie Burnow. He was running...
he just crossed the line, okay.
To the rear. Oh, okay.
It's alright.
False alarm.
Yep. It's like, why is he stopped out on the circuit on the last lap? But he's actually crossed the line, so that is why he stopped on the last lap, as Cameron Dance will likely come around to pick up the win in that class. Just seeing Eric Thorpe has just come through to pick up 2nd place. Gabriel Roux in 3rd. And Antoine Blancas.
What a performance from him too. Yeah. No tyres.
Yeah, done a great job. We'll try and hopefully confirm the no tyres in the next few minutes. But from what we can gather, no tyres throughout that race is an incredible effort. Dane Burns in 2nd, Victor Folby in 3rd in the HPDs, and Cameron Dance about to come up and complete the race. Philip Morton, a race of what might have been for him. He'll be a little bit disappointed with how it's all played out in the end, but and Jimmy Ball as well. Looks like he's going to hold on from Jason Harmsworth at this stage. There's still a little bit of racing to go for those guys, so we'll keep an eye on those guys in the next little bit. But Cameron Dance coming up to complete the 2nd half of this lap. He'll be very, very happy with this, and this will help his championship as well.
Absolutely. I mean, with the win versus his closest rival finishing a fair way down the order, this is going to be the kind of race that Cameron Dance wanted from the very start. He got pole, and he, despite getting involved in many a scrap, has come out on top. All he has to do is take his Porsche through the Porsche curves, and he'll be pretty much home free.
Give me a good old flash of the headlights. We can see you're in the lead, Cam. You don't need to tell us. We know, yep.
He's probably listening to the broadcast.
Knowing him, he does know. He always has the YouTube going in the background, doesn't he? He's one of those sort of people.
And now there's some consistent beaming of the headlights as he makes his way through Ford chicane. That is not what Cameron Dance actually looks like.
The InSim guy is much better looking mug on him than Cam does. Cam will love me saying that.
But a fantastic win anyway. Yeah. Fantastic job from Dance. And Philip Morton, I mean, what might have been, you know, if it hadn't been for those slowdowns and his issues later on in the race, man, he was a real contender for victory tonight, but a good performance nonetheless.
Had such good pace in those early phases of the race, and just incidents out of his control, and then one that was a little bit in his control. Yeah, he'll be disappointed with how it's played out, but P2, if you're disappointed about a P2, you've had a good race, I feel anyway.
Yeah, definitely. And look at how close third and fourth were at the very end. Jimmy Ball versus Jason Harmsworth, sorry.
Did Harmsworth actually have a slowdown there and had to check up at the end there?
I think so.
Yeah. Let's have a quick look before we go through our race results. Harmsworth did look like he was close enough to maybe get a move done, and I think he just cut the chicane a little bit too aggressively. And yep, definitely did.
Yeah, for sure. That's a real shame for him, but nonetheless, he'll be extremely happy with that fourth place.
Yeah, good result in the end for him, but we'll get through our race results because it's been a thoroughly entertaining one.
Yeah, certainly. Blake Neck is your LMP1 winner. Eric Thorpe and Gabriel Roos completing the podium. Antoine Blancas finishing fourth. Robert Northway, Dean Mole, Boya Bueno, Dennis Cho and Dave Douglas completing the top positions there. Riley Curtis, Rory Boyd, and Ryan DeCartier McCarthy didn't have as good races. Mitchell Bales, Josh Purwin, even worse. And Jeff McPherson and Stephen Grimmer, they barely made it a few laps in, as did Paul Garinger. I don't believe he barely took the start as well. As we go to our GTE field now, Chris Purnell and Dane Burns, your top two, and Victor Folby holding on for third, Michael Skurlock and Alex Court behind them. Mirko Dotanak, many dramas, but managed to recover to sixth, and Brad Fenley didn't have the best start, but holding on for seventh. Martin Hallinan completing the top eight.
We got Roy Clark and Taff Baldwin also finishing on the same lap as the leader than Daniel Stevens, Grant Patalo and John King, the top 13. James Robbie also finished the race in 14th. Jonathan Bennett and Shane Bowen also finished the race, and then the DNFs, Regalato, Benefield and Gerrards in the LMP2.
Meanwhile, your GTE results. Cameron Dance takes the win from Philip Morton and Jimmy Ball. Jason Harmsworth completing at the top four there, with Jamie Burnau holding on for fifth. Pat Gallo in sixth, with Alexander Sheridan and Mark Dial rounding out the top eight in that particular class. Jason Martin, Cameron Dance's rival in the championship, finishing in ninth, a couple of laps further down. Gavin Barber rounding out the top 10 with Steve Williams, Sebastian Stienko, Phil Otto, Colin Herman, Brad Matheson and Matt Hunter rounding out the top 16 in GTE. And then finally, you got James Foster, Rudy DeVroy, Matt Clote and James Hall. Unfortunately, Hall not completing the race fully either.
Wowee, what a race it's been, and we've got a couple of guys coming in for a very, very quick chat.
We certainly do. We have our class winner in LMP1 up in the commentary box right now. Blake Neck, congratulations. You won the 2.4 hours of Le Mans, and it seemed like you were barely troubled at all.
Thank you. It was a good race. I had was easier than I expected. I thought Eric and Gabriel would be closer to me at the start, and the first stint is always a bit crazy.
What exactly happened in the first stint? We noticed that you pulled out a 3-second gap by the time that you'd gotten to the second half of lap one.
I'm assuming that everybody just got bobbled up in the final chicane just as we went green, but I haven't really had a look.
Well, nonetheless, a good performance from you. You found the traffic okay to deal with?
For the most part, yes. There was some unpredictable drivers just moving out of the way in places that I didn't expect, but apart from that, it was pretty.
There we go, Blake Neck. Before we let you go, are there any sponsor shout-outs you'd like to give?
Yeah, I'll give a shout-out to Alpine Stars, GoPro, Cube Controls, SimLab, ATK, PLN, Shady Rays, Munch Media, and a huge shout out to Mike Over Bayford, putting in a huge amount of effort on the Le Mans setup the last 2 months.
Blake Neck there, of course, driving for Geodesic Racing. Chris Purnell, meanwhile, Jay, is our LMP2 winner.
Yeah, we got Chris in with us now. Congratulations, Chris. We were a little bit stressed at the end of the race there when you come in for that final splash and dash pit stop that Dane Burns might have been able to make it on fuel. Were you a little bit stressed that he'd gone that extra lap and might have been able to make it?
Yeah, to be honest, I was having kittens there for a second. Hey, I really thought I'd messed up the strategy. I knew I was close to being able to make that extra lap, but I just didn't think I was going to do it. And it was sort of like depending where Blake was on the circuit to whether it was going to go one or two more. So I thought I'd just pull the trigger and come in and get it done early.
Other than that, you've had a fairly uneventful drive, but I'm sure it wasn't as easy as it looked for us out on the track from what we saw.
Yeah, no, it was pretty good actually, to be honest with you. Yeah, just not much happened. The traffic was pretty good. Few little issues early, but yeah, once I sort of found that groove, I was pretty settled and happy.
Overall, a very, very successful night of racing, but I'm sure you've put in a lot of practice for this event. Who would you like to thank for your support behind the scenes?
I just want to thank all the boys in Illusion Motorsport. They've been working really hard prior to the 24-hour getting it all ready, so it's worked out pretty well. I would also like to thank the guys at Majors for setting it all up because it's an awesome series, and you guys obviously for hosting the
Not a problem at all. There's Chris Purnell from Illusion Motorsport, the winner of LMP2, and then Reese, you have Cam Dance, the winner of GTE alongside you.
I certainly do. Congratulations, Cam. That was a really eventful one, possibly the biggest class battle we saw all race.
Yeah, it was quite interesting going toe-to-toe pretty much all race long with Jimmy and Phil. So yeah, that was pretty interesting at times. Unfortunately, Phil had that had some issues later on with the HPD and LMP1 cars that came through at some point. I can't quite remember when, but it was before the last stop, and that damaged his car, and he didn't quite get to use his fast pace. So, but unfortunate that it ended that battle a bit early on. But that's racing sometimes, and you just got to take it on the chin and pretty much come away with a result.
In that first half of the race, you, Phil, and Jimmy were trading places quite a bit. Was there a bit of non-verbal communication between you guys about just staying with each other and trying to consolidate your positions?
There was pretty much no talking going on between us. It was pretty much, I think, we all knew what we had to do and just did our own thing. Really, we knew fuel was pretty much going to be the thing that was going to get us the furthest, and we knew we didn't all three of us probably knew we weren't going to take tyres in the end, so we just fought it out. And Jimmy did have a few goes at having a pass on me and Phil, but me and Phil just pretty much knew what we had to do. We played it smart, and yeah, ended up coming away with 1-2 pretty much.
Did the Porsche get better as the temperatures went down and it got dark?
Yeah, to some extent it did. Obviously, the colder track temp helped with the tyre life, so it was able to go a little bit further and then crease grip, so you could push a little bit harder. But yeah, the car was absolutely magical. We ran the same setup as we did in the 24-hour last weekend, I believe. Yes, so the car was absolutely magnificent in the 24-hour as well. So credit to Trotman and the boys from TTL Esports for making it such an awesome car to drive.
Well, overall championship leader has been consolidated for you with Jason Martin's poor luck in this one. So next round at Belle Isle, the fight will definitely be on once again.
Oh yes, it'll definitely be on, and I'm actually quite looking forward to Belle Isle, to be honest. I've driven a couple of cars around there in the past, and it's been quite fun. So it'll be interesting to get in the IndyCar and throw that thing around there.
Who gets it done for you, Cam?
Just like to thank the boys at TTL Sports, as I said, for making the car absolutely awesome, and also our sponsors, SimX Race Simulations, Down Under Graphics, and Thigh Design.
That's Cam Dance for TTL Esports, your race winner in GTE and the championship leader as things stand in the international division of the majors right now. Jay, that brings to an end proceedings for tonight, but my goodness, this championship just keeps turning it up.
Sure does. It's been a thoroughly enjoyable night of racing, but while it wraps up this race, it doesn't wrap it up for us. We've got more action to come over on our channel at SimSpeed TV. It's going to be an awesome night. Make sure you tune over there in the next few minutes, because you're going to see some amazing, interesting, bizarre racing that'll be a very, very good, relaxing way to spend a Saturday night.
It certainly will, so head on over to our channel to see that. Also consider subscribing to our channel as well, and please subscribe to the iRacing Esports Network. if you want to get a notification about every time there's a big sim racing broadcast on in this area of the sim sphere. There's a lot going on this channel with us at SimSpeed, our friends at GSRC and RaceSpot. Certainly, we're looking forward to seeing what happens over the next week. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and stay safe. Have a good one. From all of us here at SimSpeed TV, bye for now.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rid of the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my god! Oh, big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, here we go. Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?